These past few days have been so cold, haven't they? It's the perfect weather to sit here together and listen to mysterious stories from all around the world. Hello, dear friends of the Paranormal M channel. Thank you for sending in so many chilling experiences. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss more eerie stories to help you unwind after a long day. Now, get into bed, switch on your nightlight, and let's begin. Okay, I'm not totally sure how to start this without sounding dramatic, but there's been something with me for as long as I can remember. My mom, Layla, doesn't like talking about it, so what I know from when I was little is kind of pieced together. Apparently, as a toddler, I used to tell her I had friends in the house, or that I was seeing things that weren't there. She said I'd draw pictures of it, like over and over, and the second I'd hand them to her, she'd toss them. Not in front of me, but, you know, like she was trying to erase it. We moved when I was still pretty young, into a newer place, and for a while, everything went quiet. I almost forgot about it. Then when I was about 7 or 8, it happened again. Like, really happened. My bedroom looked straight out to the hallway, and you could also see the living room door from my bed. We live somewhere where earthquakes are common, so back then my parents wanted me sleeping with the bedroom door cracked open. In case we have to get to you fast, that kind of thing. One night I woke up and saw it. A huge black cat stepped out from the living room, way too big to be normal. It just stood there, watching me. Its eyes were this shiny, unnatural yellow, and its mouth was slightly open like it was smiling, or maybe showing teeth. I could see the fangs. And then, right there in the hallway, it started to change. It stood up on two legs, like it was shrugging off the cat shape, and it turned into this tall, painfully skinny man. Except, man doesn't even feel like the right word. It was more like a shadow shaped like a person. No face, no features, just darkness. And those same yellow eyes. It walked into my room like it had every right to be there. Then it sat down on the end of my bed, facing me. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I did the only thing my little kid brain could think to do. I pulled the blanket over my face and stayed completely still. But I could feel the mattress dip. I could feel the weight at the end of the bed like someone was actually sitting there. Eventually, I fell asleep like that, and trapped under my own blanket. After that night, I basically couldn't sleep with the door open ever again. I didn't see it transform like that again, but it never fully went away. Over the years, it would show up during the worst parts of my life. When I was really depressed, like the kind of depressed where you start feeling haunted by your own thoughts. It was always there at the edge of my vision. Just a presence, a shape in the corner, something watching without stepping fully into view. Sometimes I'd hear someone call my name from somewhere else in the house, or I'd hear footsteps coming up the stairs, deliberate, and they'd stop right outside my door like whoever it was just standing there, listening. When I moved away for college, I thought it would finally stop. New place, new life, new people. But it followed me. My partner at the time, Nico, started noticing things too. Not constantly, but enough that I couldn't pretend I was imagining everything. He'd hear the steps sometimes, or swear he heard someone speaking when we were alone. Then when my mental health started sliding again, it got worse. The lights would flick off, but only in the room I was in. Electronics would glitch or die like the energy got sucked out of them. Nico started seeing cabinet doors open by themselves, and once he said a glass shifted on the counter like someone had nudged it. When we broke up, weirdly, I still felt the presence, but it faded a little. And as my life stabilized, it became easier to ignore. I got used to it in this awful way, like you get used to living next to loud train tracks. You don't love it, but you stop jumping every time it happens. Then my sister moved out, and I was living alone again. I adopted this rescue puppy. His name was Miso. and he was tiny but fearless. And one day he started barking at my bedroom door. Not like normal puppy barking, like warning barking, like something is on the other side of this. My door was closed. Miso had his little body stiff, ears up, staring straight at the door like it was breathing. And I felt it, this rush of unease that turned into full-body fear. I didn't think. I just shouted. I screamed at whatever it was to leave, over and over, like I was trying to fill the apartment with my voice so there was no room for it. And it worked. The feeling eased. Miso stopped barking. After I calmed down, I did something that sounds ridiculous saying out loud. I sat on the floor in front of the door and I talked to it like it could hear me. I told it I knew it was the same presence from when I was a kid. I told it I didn't know what it was or what it wanted. But I also told it something else, something I hadn't really done before. I set rules. I said, "This room is off limits. Me and Miso are safe in here. You are not welcome in this space. You can exist in the apartment if you're going to, but not in here." And after that, things eased up. Miso got calmer. He still stared into corners sometimes, like dogs do, but the growling stopped. The barking stopped. And I started doing this strange thing, because I was alone and trying to heal, and I guess my brain needed someone to talk to. I'd talk to Miso, and sometimes I'd talk to myself, and slowly, without even noticing when it happened, I started talking to the presence too. Not like I expected answers. I didn't. It was more like narrating my life into the air. But then I noticed that when it showed up, it didn't feel as heavy. The shadows weren't as dark. It felt less threatening, almost watchful in a different way, like it shifted depending on the mood of the room. For a while, I even wondered, seriously, if it was some kind of guardian. Like it looked scary because that's the only shape it knew how to take, but maybe it wasn't there to hurt me. Still, I kept the boundary. The bedroom stays mine. Then about a year later, I was preparing to move back to my hometown. Miso was staying with my parents while I packed and sorted everything out at the apartment. I was doing better mentally, and honestly, I had stopped feeling the presence at all. Until one night. I was sitting in my room watching videos, half asleep, and suddenly my stomach dropped. That awful sinking feeling, like when you realize something is wrong before you even know what. I stared at my bedroom door, and this is the part that freaks me out the most, because it felt like I had to open it, like something was pulling on my brain, making it feel urgent. The pressure built until I was genuinely afraid that if I didn't open the door, something bad would happen to me. So I opened it. The hallway looked darker than it should have, even with moonlight coming in. The air felt thick, like it was holding its breath. I walked out toward the living room, and that's when I saw it. Tiny sparks spitting from an outlet near the couch. A cable had been chewed up, probably Miso earlier when he was still with me, and I had somehow never noticed. The outlet was malfunctioning, sparking hard enough that my couch was right there, close enough it could have caught. I unplugged everything, stopped it before it got worse, and the second it was handled, the apartment felt normal again. Bright again. Like whatever pressure had been pushing me evaporated. I went back to bed thinking, okay, that was weird, but at least I caught it. I laid there staring at the ceiling, trying to sleep, and then the fear came back. Something crawled. Not on the floor, on the ceiling. I saw those yellow eyes in the upper corner of the room, sharp and clear, and the shape was wrong. Too long, too many angles, limbs stretching like shadows pulled thin. It moved closer along the ceiling like a spider made of darkness. That time, it didn't feel curious. It didn't feel watchful. It felt like a warning. I managed to force my body to move, and I screamed at it, screamed until my throat hurt, that it wasn't welcome, that it couldn't come in here, that it needed to get out. And then, like flipping a switch, everything went back to normal. I called my mom, sobbing. She didn't ask questions. She just helped me breathe, helped me calm down. And we agreed I would leave the next day, and I wouldn't come back to that apartment alone. Not unless my dog or someone from my family was with me. I slept with all the lights on, and even then I could feel the darkness out in the hallway, like it was waiting. And ever since then, I haven't been able to stop wondering, did it force me to open the door to get me out into the living room on purpose? Was it tricking me? Or did it push me because the apartment was about to catch fire, and it was the only way to get my attention? Did it save me, or did it corner me? I moved back home after that, and for a while everything was fine, peaceful, normal. But lately, it's been creeping back in. Little things, like movement in the corner of the hallway, like the feeling that something is peeking around door frames just enough to remind me it's still there. And the worst part is, my mom has noticed it too. She's mentioned hearing footsteps on the stairs that stop outside my bedroom. She's mentioned seeing something shift in the hallway when no one else is awake. And I'm exhausted. I'm not even screaming terrified anymore. I'm just tired of living with a question mark in the corner of every room. I want to know what it is. I want to know why it attached itself to me, how it started, what it wants, if it wants anything. When I try to ask my mom, she shuts down. She tells me not to engage, not to talk to it, not to invite it in. But after all these years, it feels like ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It just makes it quieter. And I don't know how much longer I can live with quiet footsteps and yellow eyes that only show up when I'm most vulnerable. So, let me tell you about my wife, Kelsey, and her grandma, Nana June. Back in spring of 2021, Nana June moved in with us. Kelsey adored her, like really adored her. The kind of love where you don't just say, "We'll take care of her." You quietly rearrange your whole life so she can feel safe and comfortable every day. She took one of our spare bedrooms, the one Kelsey used to use as her office, and we turned it into Nana June's space. We got her one of those adjustable beds so she could sleep easier, and I mounted a smart TV on the wall. That part was my job, obviously. Then came the harder part, teaching her how to actually use it. She'd grown up on cable. Apps were not her world. But she was a good sport about learning, especially when she realized the biggest upside: no commercials. Nana June only ever wanted to watch 3 things: Law and Order, Chicago PD, and wrestling. And Law and Order was the clear favorite. You could always tell when it came on because of that sound, that sharp, familiar dun-dun, and the gavel hit. It became part of the house's background noise. Honestly, it wasn't even new to us. That sound had been in her home for years. I still have an old voicemail from Nana June, like from way back, and you can literally hear the Law and Order gavel in the background while she's talking. It's one of those little things you don't think will matter someday, until it suddenly matters a lot. Later in 2021, she got really sick. That awful virus. I don't even like saying it out loud, because even now it makes my throat tighten. But she didn't make it. We were heartbroken. And then we had this room, her room, that still looked like her. The bed, the TV, everything. Sometimes one of us would go in there late at night and just sit, talk about her, watch something quietly so we didn't wake the other person. Without even planning it, we kept calling it Nana June's room. We still do. About a month after she passed, the first strange thing happened. I was up late in Nana June's room getting ready for a New Year's weekend camping trip. I was excited, so I was doing that restless late-night organizing, spreading gear out, sorting it into packs, making sure I had everything. I had a survival show on in the background, something like Survivor Man or Dual Survival, just noise while I worked. At one point, I was down on the floor, and I remember thinking, actually saying to myself, "Man, It's hot in here. I wiped sweat off my forehead, and right then, I heard the click, like an actual wall switch being flipped. And immediately the ceiling fan kicked on, blades spinning, air moving, that sudden rush of cool breeze like the room had decided to take care of me. And here's the part that surprises people. I wasn't scared. My first thought wasn't ghost or haunting or anything dramatic. My first thought was, Nana June turned the fan on for me. Now, my brain, my skeptical, technical brain, tried to clean it up into something reasonable. Maybe the switch was loose. Maybe it was sitting right on the edge between off and on, and the plastic or metal shifted because of temperature. Materials expand and contract. That's real. That happens. But still, I said out loud, without thinking, "Thanks, Nana June." And I slept in there that night like it was nothing. After that, sometimes I'd use that bed just to relax, play a game on my Switch with the TV on, unwind, whatever. The room felt quiet, familiar, almost watched over. Then a couple months later, something happened to Kelsey. She tries the remote. Nothing. She presses the power button again. Nothing. Now she's annoyed, thinking the batteries died. She keeps clicking it, frustrated, half asleep, and then suddenly, the TV screen flashes brighter and, super loud, the room fills with dun-dun, that Law and Order sound, clear as day, like someone hit play on it on purpose. And immediately after that sound, the TV shuts off by itself. The whole room goes dark. And Kelsey, this is the part that gets me. She doesn't panic. She doesn't run out of the room. She just kind of pauses, then rolls over and goes right back to sleep. The next morning she tells me, and it's like something inside me clicks into place, because it didn't feel like a random glitch anymore. It felt personal, like a little signature, like the only way Nana June would ever announce herself. And look, I'm not a spooky story person. I'm a very logical, skeptical guy. I've worked with tech for years, software, hardware, audio-video systems. I'm the kind of person who clears caches compulsively. I unplug things. I test things. I troubleshoot things until the mystery is dead. So, could it have been some weird audio buffer in the TV? Some leftover clip stuck in memory? I mean, maybe, but it doesn't make sense. Not really. We hadn't watched Law and Order on any TV since she passed. That TV has been powered down, unplugged, used for different shows, different apps, games, everything. If there was a leftover audio ghost in the machine, it had a million chances to show up in a random way. But it didn't. It showed up at the exact moment it would mean something. Like a message, like a nudge, like someone saying, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm okay." And honestly, however you explain it, the only way it feels is this. Nana June just wanted to say hi. Okay, so I'm going to tell this the same way I tell it to friends, in 3 pieces. The backstory, the stuff I grew up hearing, and then what actually happened to me when I finally lived there. So, the house. My mom, Diane, owns this old place that my great-grandpa Ray built. I don't know, maybe 60-something years ago, give or take. It's barely been updated, which sounds charming until you're standing in a kitchen that still feels like it's stuck in a different decade, and the cabinets are literally starting to sag like they're tired. I lived there for a little while when I was a toddler, but I remember basically none of it. What I do remember is how people reacted to it. Even as a kid, if I brought friends over, they'd get that look, like they were trying to be polite, but their whole body was going, "Nope, absolutely not." And I grew up with this casual family understanding that the house had company. Not in a dramatic horror movie way, more like "Oh yeah, there are spirits there," like it was a weird extra feature of the property. But honestly, I didn't spend much time there until a couple years back, when I moved into the basement with my boyfriend at the time, Caleb, for about a year. He's my fiancé now, which is funny because he still insists I'm suggestible and too friendly with the supernatural. Anyway, what I was told growing up. So when I was little, my parents had a handful of stories they'd tell, sometimes like warnings, sometimes like family folklore. First one, the man outside. My dad, Mark, used to say the house sat on land that had belonged to indigenous people. We never actually verified any of that. It's possible based on the area, but no one ever dug into it properly. Still, my dad would swear he occasionally saw a man outside the house dressed in traditional regalia. Not scary, not threatening, more like watchful. My dad described the feeling as steady, even comforting. Like the presence wasn't there to bother anyone, just be there. Second one, the cat. Before I was born, my mom had this orange cat named Mango. She rescued him, and back then he was mostly an outdoor cat because that was just what people did. He died in a really upsetting way involving a neighbor, and I won't go into details, but it was the kind of death that sticks to you, especially if you love the animal. After Mango was gone, my mom would say she still heard him sometimes. Little sounds. A brush against a leg when no one was there. And my dad once said he felt a cat walk across the bed at night. Slow, deliberate steps. Except there was no cat. But the strangest Mango thing was this. Years later, my mom was repainting a room that was eventually going to become my playroom. She paints one whole wall, fresh and clean, then steps out for a bit. When she comes back, she swears on her life. The entire newly painted wall is covered in orange cat hair. Like someone took a brush and just threw it across the wet paint. And that room, by the way, was always the one that felt the weirdest. Third one, the playroom. That room had its own energy. It was always cold, like the temperature dropped the second you stepped through the door. Maybe it was bad insulation. Maybe it was the fact that every repair in that house was a figure it out as you go kind of situation. But still, it felt wrong in a way I can't totally explain. My mom claimed she'd seen shadowy figures pass by the doorway, like movement that didn't belong to anyone in the house. And toys with batteries, especially talking toys, would activate on their own. Now sure, toys glitch. But my mom was obsessive about switching them off before bed. She always was. So the fact that they were both on, both reacting, in the middle of the night, in that room, it freaked her out. What happened to me? Here's the part people expect to be the big reveal, and I always have to disappoint them a little. I never saw a man in ceremonial clothing. I never saw an orange cat. I never saw a shadow figure move across a doorway. What I did have, though, was this persistent feeling that I wasn't alone, even when I definitely was. And there are 3 moments that still stick with me because they were just odd in a way that didn't match the normal house noises. 1. The swoosh. This is the smallest one, but it's hard to describe without sounding like I'm reaching. I was sitting on the bed in the basement bedroom, and Caleb was in the bathroom 1 room over. Shared wall, close enough that you can hear little movements. And I felt him come into the room. Like, not emotionally, physically. I heard the soft footstep sounds, and I felt that subtle shift in the air, that someone just entered swoosh. I looked up fully expecting to see him. Nothing. And then I heard him still moving around in the bathroom. He hadn't left. He hadn't opened the door. It was like the house performed the idea of him walking in. 2. The front door. The house was kind of falling apart in that charming but annoying way. The front door in particular was a nightmare. It stuck constantly because of this janky DIY weather stripping, and the knob was loose enough that it sometimes wouldn't catch properly. The key would turn and do nothing. And because of a few circumstances I won't get into, we basically had to use that door. So I started doing this thing, half joking, half sincere, where I'd greet whatever might be there. Like, "Hi, okay, it's me." And then I'd say, out loud, "Can you let me in?" Or, "Please don't make this hard today." Tell me why it worked. Not every time, but often enough that I noticed a pattern. I'd ask, I'd fiddle with the key, and suddenly it would give in like it had just decided to cooperate. Caleb hated it because he didn't want to encourage me, but I also know he secretly got freaked out when it worked too smoothly. And honestly, part of me did it because if something was there, the thought of it being ignored for decades felt sad. Like, imagine being stuck in a place and nobody even acknowledges you. So I'd say hello, just in case. 3. The giggle. This one is the cleanest, most straightforward moment, and it still gives me chills. One night, Caleb and I were watching a movie. Nothing creepy, just normal background noise, and we both heard a little kid giggle. Not a laugh track, not muffled dialogue, a clear, quick, playful giggle, like a child standing a few feet away trying not to be noticed. I immediately went, "Did you hear that?" And Caleb, without even looking away at first, goes, "Yeah, it was in the movie." So I paused it, rewound, played the exact moment again. No giggle. And the look on his face after that, when he realized it wasn't the movie, was the closest he's ever come to admitting the house might have been interacting with us. That's it. That's my year in that basement. Nothing huge, nothing cinematic. Just enough little moments, quiet and strange and perfectly timed, to make you feel like the house was listening back. So, when I was really little, like toddler little, maybe 3 or 4, my family lived in this big, boxy house that felt way too large for us. It was just me, my 2 older sisters, Nora and Callie, and my parents, Megan and Dave. And I know this is going to sound dramatic, but that house always felt off, like it didn't want to be lived in. There were small things at first, the kind of stuff adults try to shrug off. My dad would tell my mom he heard footsteps upstairs when he was completely alone. My mom joked that the place was cursed with mess, but she also swore that no matter how much she cleaned, it never stayed clean. Things vanished constantly. Not like, "Oh, it'll turn up later," vanished. More like the house swallowed them. My sister Nora was the one who always said she could sense things. She'd get quiet in certain rooms, stare at corners, refuse to go down a hallway alone. And both Nora and Callie insisted that the room I slept in had something in it. Something mean. They used words like entity, and once, when they thought I wasn't listening, they even said demon. I didn't understand what any of that meant at the time. I just remember how the air felt in that room. Heavy. Like the dark didn't just fill the room, it pressed against you. Even now, I only have a handful of clear memories from that age, but 2 of them have never left me. The first one is strange and terrifying in a way that almost feels unreal. I remember waking up and not being able to move. My eyes were open, my brain felt awake, but my body wouldn't listen. And I saw these long, purplish arms around me, thin and bony, curving over my chest like I was trapped inside some kind of rib cage. Like something had built a cage out of itself just to keep me pinned there. And then, this is where it gets even weirder. I remember tumbling out of bed, like my body suddenly released, and I hit the floor. And right after that, I saw a man I didn't recognize rush toward me. In my memory, he's not blurry or dreamlike. He's fast, intentional, and he has a knife. I know how it sounds, I know. I was a preschooler. It could have been a nightmare tangled up with sleep paralysis. But that doesn't stop it from feeling real when it flashes back into my head. But the second one is the one I hate thinking about. Because it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a moment I walked through. Back then, I used to wake up at night and go find my parents. Their bedroom was upstairs. To get there, I had to leave my room, go out into this odd hallway that bent in a sharp turn near the kitchen, then climb the stairs. The house had this awkward layout, walls that jutted out, corners that blocked your view just enough to make you feel like something could be standing there without you knowing. One night, I got up like I always did. I remember the floor being cold under my feet. I remember the house being silent in that deep, thick way it gets when everyone's asleep. And as I walked past the kitchen area, I saw something behind this short dividing wall that separated the kitchen from the hallway. At first, my brain registered it as socks. Just a pair of socks, standing upright, like they were planted on the floor as if someone had stepped out of them, or like someone had pulled them up and was standing perfectly still, hiding behind the wall, but only the socks were visible. And I stopped. I can't explain how I knew. I didn't hear anything, I didn't see a body, but the feeling hit me like ice water. Like whatever was there wanted me to notice it, but didn't want to fully show itself. I remember my stomach dropping. I remember that instinct that says, don't run, don't look too hard, just keep going. So I did. I walked faster, like pretending it wasn't there would protect me. I went up the stairs, got into my parents' room, and climbed into their bed. They were both there, both asleep. No one else was awake. No one else was wandering around. No prank, no sister messing with me. Nothing that could explain what I saw. And the worst part is, it's not even the image that haunts me the most. It's the feeling. That quiet certainty that what I saw was a someone pretending to be a something. And even now, years later, I can still picture those socks, upright, still, half hidden behind the kitchen wall, like the house was holding its breath, waiting to see if I'd figure out what was really standing there. So this happened when I was about 15, which feels like a whole lifetime ago now. I'm a little fuzzy on the exact sequence of events, so I might miss a detail or two. But I remember the feeling of it really clearly. I was out of state that summer, visiting some friends. I'll call them Mia and Jordan. And they invited me to this one-night summer thing at their church. It was meant to be fun. There were games outside, some kind of goofy contest. I think it was a pie-eating contest. Or maybe it was watermelon. Honestly, I'm not totally sure. And then everyone went inside for a short talk afterward. Back then, I was still Christian. My relationship with faith has changed a lot since. I've gone through seasons where I stepped away completely, and seasons where I circled back. These days, I'm careful with it. Open, but also aware I'm carrying some religious trauma, so I don't force certainty anymore. I just try to be honest about where I'm at. And at that point in my life, honesty would have sounded like I was not okay. I was living with my mom, and it was abusive. It was one of those situations where you learn how to shrink yourself so you don't set anything off, and you start living in your own head because it feels safer than being fully present. I remember walking around before the service, people laughing, talking, doing normal summer stuff, and I was physically there, but mentally I was somewhere dark, just spiraling, ruminating. That heavy, sinking kind of thinking where everything feels pointless and permanent. So we sit down for the talk, and I'm still barely listening. The speaker was a young guy, I'll call him Caleb, and he started talking about the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And I remember one line because it was so specific. He said something like, "Knowledge is knowing what a box is. Wisdom is knowing what belongs inside it." Something along those lines. I remember thinking, okay, sure, that's fine. And then I drifted again. And then, this is where it gets weird. Caleb starts describing a scenario, and at first it's just relatable in a general way. Like, yeah, lots of people go through hard stuff, you know? But then it gets more specific, and more specific, and suddenly my brain snaps awake because I'm sitting there thinking, wait, that's my life. That is literally what's happening to me right now. It wasn't just similar in a vague, inspirational way. It felt uncomfortably close, like someone had been reading pages out of my journal. And then he shifted into this other part of the message, and I swear to you, it felt like he was answering thoughts I'd been having earlier that day. Not just the theme of them, the exact shape of them. Like my mind would throw up a sentence, and then a moment later he'd say something that felt like a reply. My heart started pounding. I remember thinking, what the hell is happening? Is this a coincidence? Did someone tell him something? How would anyone even know? And then he stopped pacing around the stage and said, really firmly, like he was talking to one person, "Go to someone you trust." He said it again. Go to someone you trust. And again, over and over, like he was underlining it with his whole voice. And I just broke. Quietly, but completely. Tears started running down my face, and I was trying so hard to hide it because I felt embarrassed. Like I was being dramatic, like everyone would turn and look and know something was wrong with me. And then, I'll never forget this part. He kind of cut himself off mid-thought, like he surprised himself, and he said something like, "I don't even know why I'm saying this right now." And I remember feeling cold all over, because that was the exact moment it stopped feeling like a normal speech. It felt like something was happening through him, or like the room had narrowed down to just me and that one sentence. Go to someone you trust. That night ended, and I don't remember much else. I remember leaving, and the air outside feeling different than when I walked in, like I'd been underwater and suddenly surfaced. The next day, Mia and Jordan asked me how it was. They told me Caleb had apparently noticed me and thought I didn't like the service. And I tried to answer casually. I tried to play it off. But the second I opened my mouth, I started crying again. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears I couldn't stop. And I remember saying really quickly, avoiding the whole truth, "No, it was good. It was really good." Because how do you explain it without sounding insane? How do you say, "I felt like someone reached directly into my thoughts and pulled me back from the edge"? But the honest ending is simple. Whatever that was, coincidence, intuition, God, timing, my brain finally hearing what it needed to hear, it pushed me towards something I'd been too scared to do. It made it clear that I needed help, that I could reach out, that I should. And even now, years later, even in a better life, in my own place, away from that situation, it still gives me chills to think about. Not because it was scary in the usual way, more like it was the kind of moment that makes you feel seen when you didn't realize how invisible you'd become. Okay, so this happened about a year and a half ago, and I still get that weird, tight feeling in my chest when I think about it. My family and I rented this really pretty Airbnb out in rural Pennsylvania. One of those houses that feels cozy the second you walk in. Warm lighting, nice furniture, not creepy at all. Like, it genuinely felt like a great place to spend a week. There are 7 of us total. My mom and dad, me, my brother, and 4 sisters. 2 of my sisters are younger, and the rest of us are in our 20s. The sleeping setup was kind of spread out. My parents took a bedroom on the main floor. The 2 younger girls were upstairs, and then the basement, finished, carpeted, totally normal, was for the older kids. My brother had his own room down there, and I shared another basement bedroom with my older sister Tessa. So, first night. I cannot sleep. I'm tossing around, staring at the ceiling, the whole thing. And when I finally do fall asleep, I start having this dream. Except it doesn't feel like a dream, you know? It feels like I'm trapped in it. In the dream, I keep waking up, and every time I look at the clock, it says 2:12 a.m. Every single time. And then this woman, like this shadowy, frantic-looking woman, comes rushing at me. She's wearing this pale dress. Her hair is long and black and all messed up, and she's holding a lamp like she's going to swing it at my head. And the worst part is, it loops. I wake up. It's 2:12. She charges at me. I panic. Then I wake up again, and it's 2:12 again. Over and over and over. Each time I'm crying harder, screaming harder, and I can't break out of it. When I finally actually wake up for real, I'm full-on sobbing. Like that kind of crying where you can't catch your breath. I ended up waking Tessa up, and she's half asleep, trying to calm me down, and I'm just sitting there shaking like I ran a mile. The next morning, we're all at breakfast, and my brother, Mason, is in a foul mood. Just silent, pushing food around. My mom notices immediately and she goes, "What's going on with you? Why are you so cranky?" And Mason looks up and goes, completely serious, "I had a really bad dream." And I'm already frozen because I can feel where this is going. He goes, "There was this creepy woman and she kept attacking me. Like, she wouldn't stop." I swear the air in the room changed. Tessa and I just stared at him. Tessa actually thought Mason and I were messing with her, like we planned some dumb prank. She starts accusing us, and my mom gets irritated because my 2 younger sisters are at the table, listening with big eyes. My mom's like, "Stop it. Don't scare your sisters. There's no such thing as ghosts." And literally, right then, the basement door slams shut. Not a gentle close, not a drafty little click. A slam so hard everyone jumped. And here's what got me. That door was in the middle of the house. No windows open, no breeze, nothing. My mom does that thing where she immediately tries to rationalize it. She's like, "Okay, coincidence. It's an old house. Doors move." But nobody was laughing anymore. Not even a little. We left for the day, went out, did normal stuff, tried to shake it off, and when we came back, the front door was standing open. Not unlocked, open. And then we notice other things. Interior doors open too, like all around the house. Even drawers and cabinets in the kitchen were pulled out like someone had been rummaging. My dad called the police. They actually came and searched the house, every room, upstairs, basement, closets, everything. No one was there. That night, I'm trying to pretend everything is normal, but the energy is just heavy, like the house is holding its breath. Then at some point, Tessa shakes me awake and she is sobbing, like ugly crying. She's gripping my arm so tight it hurt, and she keeps saying, "Please make it stop. Please, just tell me you're real. Tell me you're real." And I'm like, "Tessa, what are you talking about?" Because she's freaking me out so bad. And she tells me she had the same dream. The woman, the attacking, the looping, the waking up and it being the same time. At that point, we were beyond spooked. We're adults, but we were genuinely scared. So the next night, the 3 of us, me, Tessa, and Mason, sleep in Mason's room together. 3 grown people, in our 20s, huddled up like kids at a sleepover. That's how freaked out we were. My parents were annoyed. They thought we were feeding off each other and being dramatic. And honestly, I tried to lighten the mood because I didn't know what else to do. I was joking with my siblings like, "Fine, I'll talk to the ghost." And I'm whispering into the air like an idiot going, "Hey, ghost, if you're confused and you need something, you gotta take it up with my mom, okay? She's the manager." We laughed, nervous laughter, but it broke the tension a little. Until that night. Around 3 a.m., we hear screaming upstairs. Real screaming. We run out into the hallway, and my mom is losing it. Like, shaking, yelling, frantic. She's shouting at my dad, accusing him of messing with her, saying, "This isn't funny. Stop, stop." My dad is half awake, totally confused, like, "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything." And my mom, who had been rolling her eyes at all of us, looked genuinely terrified. Not annoyed, not skeptical, terrified. She wouldn't even fully explain what happened. She just kept saying something like, "I know what I saw," and "I'm not doing this," and "We're leaving." And she meant it. The next morning, she made us pack. Immediately. We had days left on the reservation, no refund, nothing. My dad was trying to reason with her, like, "We can't just..." And she didn't care. She was done. We left that house and never went back. My parents even bought last-minute tickets home because my mom refused to stay one more night anywhere near that place. And to this day, I still don't know exactly what my mom saw. She's never described it in detail, just that it scared her enough that she didn't care about money, plans, anything. And my siblings still blame me. They're like, "You 100% invited something in when you started joking around." Which, listen, I know how ridiculous that sounds. I do. If someone told me this story, I'd probably be like, "Sure, okay." But I swear to you, it happened. And I still catch myself thinking about that dream. The clock, 2:12, and that woman rushing at me like she's been waiting. And I don't really know what I believe. I just know what we experienced. So, I've been sitting with this for a long time, and I'm finally at the point where I just have to say it out loud. I'm pretty convinced our little place is haunted. Or maybe it's not even just our place. Maybe it's the land the whole mobile home park sits on. It started with small stuff, the kind of thing you can brush off if you want to, like hearing your name, clear as day, being called in your mom's voice, except your mom is asleep, or she's not even home, or hearing footsteps in the hallway, slow and steady when the house is completely empty. And then there's the living room. Sometimes it sounds like there are people talking in there, like a low conversation just out of reach, but when you check, it's nothing. Just the TV off, the air still, nobody there. And the cold spots. Those are the strangest. You'll walk through the house and suddenly it's like you stepped into a pocket of winter. No window open, no door cracked, nothing that should explain it. It's just cold. Wrong cold. Before anyone jumps to the usual explanations, I promise we've been down that road. There's no gas in our home, no gas appliances, none of that. So that's off the list. And we've got a smoke detector with a carbon monoxide detector built in, so it's not that either. And no, nobody in our family is dealing with anything mental health related that would explain shared experiences. This has happened to more than one of us, at different times, in different ways. People also love to assume demonic, especially because of the voice mimicry, but I don't think it's that. There's none of the classic stuff. No rotten meat smell, no knocking at 3 a.m., none of those movie signs. It's unsettling sometimes, sure, but it doesn't feel like something trying to hurt us. One of the moments that really stuck with me was this laundry basket incident. We had a plastic clothes basket sitting on top of the dryer. Dryer off, basket pushed toward the back, not balanced on an edge or anything. And somehow, it slid off like it was nudged and smacked onto the floor. Not toppled, slid. Like it moved first, then fell. My older brother, Evan, and his girlfriend at the time, Marissa, actually noticed things even before we fully moved in. They told me the kitchen was the worst. They'd be standing in there and swear they could hear someone walking around on the linoleum, like soft pacing. And then the voices, like multiple people talking over each other in the kitchen, but muffled, like it was happening in the next room. Except it wasn't. When Evan and Marissa were still living with us, there was one night where the three of us were home, only us, and we all heard plastic grocery bags rustling, like someone was digging through them, shifting them around, crinkling them. We froze and looked at each other because it wasn't subtle. It wasn't maybe. It was the kind of sound you'd hear if somebody was literally standing there with their hands in the bags. Later on, Evan dated another girl, Sienna, and she had her own experience. It was the dead of winter, and she said she walked through the hallway and hit this intense cold spot that didn't make sense. Then she told me, quietly, like she was embarrassed to even say it, that she saw a black shadow pass beside her in the dark. Not a person, not a shape she could explain, just a moving shadow that didn't belong to anything. And even after living here for almost 4 years, I can't explain most of it. Not even close. There's also this area behind the park, just past the last row of homes, kind of overgrown and quiet. During the day, it's whatever. But at night, the vibe back there changes. It feels heavy. Like something is there, and it knows you're looking, and it doesn't want to be. It's not that I always see anything. I don't. But I sense it. Like my body notices before my brain does. I've had paranormal experiences since I was a kid, well over a decade now. So as strange as this is, it doesn't exactly shock me. But what's important is this. Not every place we've lived had activity. So I've ruled out the idea that it's just me or my family carrying something around, like we're followed. If it were that, it would be everywhere. And it hasn't been. So I don't know. Maybe it's our home. Maybe it's the whole park. Maybe it's the land itself. But whatever it is, it's been here a long time, and it's comfortable enough to let us know it's around. So picture this. I'm spending one night alone at this little hotel off the highway. Nothing fancy, just one of those places you stay when you're passing through. My brother Evan drove me there, but he didn't come inside with me or anything. He dropped me at the front entrance. We said our goodbyes, and that was it. He didn't even know my room number. I get settled in, kick my shoes off, turn on some random TV show for background noise, just trying to relax. Then at about 9:40 p.m., the room phone rings. And it's weird, because who's calling a hotel room that late? My first thought is, maybe the front desk needs something? So I pick it up and go, "Hello?" Nothing. I pause, I listen, and I swear I hear something. Like faint breathing? Not loud, not obvious, just enough to make my skin go a little tight. I say, "Hello?" again. Still nothing. So I hang up, telling myself it's probably just a glitch. But not even 10 minutes later, the phone rings again. Now I'm sitting up straighter. I pick it up. "Hello? Hi. Hello?" I say it a few times, trying to sound normal even though my heart's starting to thump. Again, silence. And again, that faint, maybe not real breathing. Like someone is there, but refusing to speak. After about 20 seconds of me listening to nothing, I hang up. At this point, I'm telling myself, okay, that's creepy. But maybe it's a wrong connection. Maybe someone's messing up dialing. Maybe anything else. And then, less than 10 minutes later, it rings a third time. That's when my stomach drops. Because once is a fluke, twice is unsettling, 3 times feels personal. So I don't even play polite anymore. I pick it up, say one sharp, hello? And when I get the same dead air, I hang up and immediately unplug the room phone from the wall. I just stare at it for a second after I unplug it, like it might ring anyway. Then I call the front desk from my cell. A woman answers. She sounds tired but kind. I tell her, "Hi, I'm so sorry, but this is going to sound strange. The room phone has rang 3 times, and every time there's just silence. Maybe breathing? It's freaking me out." She pauses like she's taking me seriously, which I appreciate. Then she says, "No one has called asking to be connected to your room, but if it happens again, we can move you to a different room." I tell her I unplugged the phone for the night. She's like, "That's fine, and honestly, if we needed something, we would have just called your cell phone." And that should have made me feel better. But it didn't. Because here's the thing, to call a room phone, someone would usually have to go through the front desk, right? Like they'd have to ask to be connected. And nobody knew my room number, not even my brother. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't even posted anything. I hadn't talked to anyone at the hotel besides the person who checked me in. And I didn't think the front desk worker was messing with me either. In the background of her call, I could hear how quiet it was. No lobby TV blaring, no joking around, just normal. So I hang up, and I'm trying to convince myself it's nothing. But I'm also sitting there in this room with the unplugged phone on the nightstand like it's some kind of cursed object. And I'll be honest, I spent the next hour half watching the TV and half waiting. Every tiny sound, the air conditioner clicking, footsteps in the hallway, had me holding my breath like, is this it? Is something about to happen? Nothing did. I made it through the night, but I still can't explain it, not in a way that actually makes sense. And the worst part is, it didn't feel like a prank. It felt like someone, or something, was just there. Have you ever had anything like that happen? Like a phone call that wasn't a wrong number, wasn't the front desk, wasn't anyone you know, but still felt weirdly intentional. So, quick bit of context before I get into it. I wasn't the one in the hospital. My younger sister, Marissa, was. She'd had a couple scary seizures and ended up in the ICU for monitoring. She's completely okay now, but back then, it was one of those nights where everything feels heavy, you know? It was around midnight, and this was back when hospitals still had those chunky old box TVs mounted way up in the corner, like the kind that hummed even when the volume was low. My parents were back in Marissa's room with her, because only 2 people were allowed in at a time. So I was stuck in this tiny waiting area right outside the ICU corridor, trying to pretend I wasn't worried by watching whatever late-night show was on. The waiting room door faced straight down the hallway. At the end, the hall split, left or right, and it was one of those sterile, quiet hospital hallways that feels too long even when it's not. I'm sitting there watching TV when I catch movement out of the corner of my eye. At first I ignored it because, hospitals are full of motion. Nurses, carts, people shifting, lights flickering. Your brain fills in blanks all the time. But then it happens again. So I turn my head and just watch the end of the hallway, and that's when I see him. It looked like a little boy, maybe 5, 6 at the absolute oldest. He was small, like kid small, and he was moving, fast, almost like he was playing a game. He ran from one side of the hallway to the other, like back and forth, like he was chasing something only he could see. And here's the part that took a second to actually register. I could see through him. At first, my brain didn't even understand what it was looking at. It was almost normal for a beat, like, oh, a kid. And then your mind catches up and goes, wait, why can I see the wall behind him? He didn't look at me. He didn't hesitate. He just kept doing that same little run, back and forth, like he was stuck in a loop. No sound either. No footsteps, no laughter, nothing. Just the motion. And I remember thinking how impossible it was. There's no way a child is wandering around alone on an ICU floor at midnight, and definitely not sprinting up and down the hallway like it's a playground. Then, after a few passes, he was just gone. Not like he turned a corner or ran out of sight, more like the hallway simply didn't have him in it anymore. And I didn't feel scared, which is the weird thing. I felt kind of still, and then, honestly, kind of sad, like I just watched something lonely repeat itself. Later, when I thought about it, I wondered if it was one of those leftover moments people talk about, like a recording that replays, because he never acknowledged me at all. It didn't feel interactive. It felt like I just happened to be there when something echoed. And what's even stranger is, that wasn't my first weird experience. It was my third one, and all of them happened after I turned 16. Like something flipped on, like I suddenly became, if not a magnet, then at least a receiver for stuff most people don't notice. I don't know what I saw that night. I'm not going to pretend I can prove it, but I know what it looked like, and I know how it felt. And I still think about that little boy sometimes, running quietly back and forth in that bright hallway, like he was waiting for someone to catch up. Okay, so a little background so you can picture it. My mom, Marianne, was recovering from a knee surgery, and she was resting in the bedroom she shares with my stepdad, Caleb. Caleb was at work that day, so it was just the two of us in the house. I kept my bedroom door cracked open on purpose, just so I could hear her if she called for me or needed anything. Out in the kitchen, there was this small delivery box on the counter. Not huge, but not empty either. It had a couple random things inside, so it had some weight to it. Like, it wasn't the kind of box that's going to scoot around because of a breeze or vibration. It would take an actual shove to move it. Earlier, I'd been playing Dead by Daylight with my headset on. I finished a match, took the headset off, and started mindlessly scrolling on my phone for a bit. I think it was Instagram, just zoning out and letting my brain cool down. The house was quiet, except the TV in the living room playing softly in the background. No fans running, no windows open, nothing like that. Just still. And then I heard it. Not a vague little bump, I mean the clear, unmistakable sound of cardboard sliding across the counter. Like someone dragged that box for maybe a second or two. Just long enough for me to go, wait, what was that? At first, I kind of froze because my brain had to catch up. I literally had that moment where you replay it in your head like, did I seriously just hear a box move? And then the obvious thought hit me. There's nobody in the kitchen. My mom was in bed. I was in my room. Caleb wasn't home. And I'll be honest, I didn't go check. I just sat there, staring at my phone, suddenly way more aware of how quiet everything was. I wasn't terrified or anything. It was more like this prickly, uneasy feeling. Like being caught off guard when you thought you were completely alone. After a minute, I told myself, nope, not today. And I went right back to gaming, like if I ignored it hard enough, it would stop being real. Later on, when I finally did peek out, the box was sitting exactly where I remembered it being. Same spot, like nothing ever happened. Which almost made it worse, because then I couldn't even blame it on me bumping the counter earlier or something. And here's the thing, I've had little weird moments before. Like this one time, a while back, the smoke detector chirped and went off just after midnight for no reason, and then stopped. No low battery, No smoke, nothing. It felt mischievous, like something wanted a reaction. So yeah, if you ask me, I don't know what moved that box, but it sure felt like something decided to mess with me. Just a little, just enough to make me notice. So, this happened when I was 18, and I still get that weird, tight feeling in my chest when I think about it. There's this stretch of road where I grew up. 2-lane, quiet, nothing but thick woods pressed in on both sides. People have whispered about it for years. The story changes depending on who's telling it, but the version I always heard was that a school bus wrecked out there back in the late 70s or early 80s. A bunch of kids. Tragic. Awful. And then, like people do, folks turned it into a dare. They'd say, drive it heading west. Stop in the middle of the trees. Flick your headlights off and on a few times. Then keep going like nothing happened. And if the road liked you, or didn't, you'd see a single light fall in behind you and follow you until you hit the end of the woods, where it would whip off into the trees like it got yanked away. Now, I'd already had a couple of strange experiences in my life, so I wasn't exactly a full-blown skeptic. But I didn't buy that story. It sounded too clean, too much like something teenagers repeat because they want it to be true. Anyway, it was late, past 1 in the morning. I was riding up front with my cousin Marin and my older brother Eli. The kids were with us too, knocked out in the back, all curled up and breathing soft, the way they do when they're completely gone. We'd been out of town and stopped at the last gas station before the highway split. Bright fluorescent lights, stale coffee smell, the whole thing. And here's the part that still bugs me. As we pulled out of that gas station, I suddenly felt this urge, like a nudge, to tell them about that road. It wasn't even a conversation we were already having. I just brought it up. Like my mouth decided before my brain did. Marin laughed. Eli rolled his eyes. And then, because the kids were asleep and we were all wide awake, we decided to take the detour. Just to see, you know? That was the excuse. We turned onto the road and almost immediately realized we were facing the wrong direction for the rules. So we drove down to the intersection, flipped around, and headed the other way. I remember Eli slowing to a crawl, the headlights washing over the trees like searchlights. We stopped in the middle, where the woods felt the thickest, where the road felt like it narrowed even though it didn't, and Eli flicked the headlights 3 times. Off, on, off, on, off, on. Nothing. No light in the mirror, no weird glow. Just the hum of the engine and the soft snoring from the back seat. We kind of laughed it off, but we weren't ready to admit we'd driven out there for nothing. So we crossed back over to the side road, turned around in the parking lot of this little white church, and waited at the stop sign like we were suddenly big on traffic laws. That's when all 3 of us saw it. Halfway down the road, straight ahead, near the tree line, there were 2 eyes. Not reflective deer eyes. Not a your headlights hit an animal and it glints kind of thing. These were red, like ember red, glowing. And they were at about the height a deer's eyes would be, which somehow made it worse because deer don't do that. Not like that. We just froze. Nobody spoke at first. I remember Marin whispering, "Do you see that?" Like she needed confirmation that she wasn't losing it. Eli swallowed hard and said, "Let's just drive. Slow." So we did. We rolled forward toward the exact spot where those eyes had been. And the second we reached it, the car radio turned on by itself. No one touched it. No one even moved. We were all on that front seat, shoulder to shoulder, hands visible, like we were in some interrogation room. The radio started flipping stations, fast. Snatches of country, a preacher's voice, a blast of static, a pop song, more static, like someone was twisting the dial with a nervous hand. It wasn't even landing long enough to make sense, just skipping and sputtering like it couldn't find a place to belong. That radio never did that before. It never did it after. We drove to the end of the road, turned left, and headed toward the highway home. By then, nobody was laughing anymore. The air in the car felt heavy, like the inside of a storm cloud. Once we hit the highway, everything should have felt normal again. It was summer, so the view was wide, no tall crops, no thick fog. You could see headlights coming from a long way off. And that's why what happened next still doesn't sit right with me. We'd barely gotten settled into the right lane when this black semi came roaring up behind us out of nowhere, like it had appeared in the space between one heartbeat and the next. It had lights everywhere, not just the usual headlights. There were rows of bright amber lights along the side. Except it didn't have a trailer. Just the cab. A huge, dark shape with too many glowing points, closing the distance fast. Eli sped up. 65, still gaining. 75, still gaining. I remember looking into the rearview mirror and feeling my stomach drop, because it didn't feel like a normal truck coming up behind you. It felt intentional, like it was chasing. Eli hit 80, knuckles white on the wheel, and finally we got to our turnoff, this back road that cut toward town. He took it hard, swung us onto it, and immediately slammed the brakes. We all sat there for half a second, listening to the kids breathing in the back, waiting to hear the semi rumble past. Nothing. Eli and I jumped out and looked back toward the highway, and there was no truck. No taillights, no amber side lights, nothing fading into the distance. And the thing is, that highway stretches straight for miles. There aren't side roads. There isn't a hidden turnoff for a long way. If a truck that lit up like a carnival ride had passed, we would have seen it. Even if it had somehow turned off, we would have seen the lights shift and vanish. But the highway was empty, like it had never existed. I remember Eli just staring, breathing hard, then looking at me like he was waiting for me to explain physics. Marin stayed in the car, eyes wide, whispering, "Where did it go?" We got back in and drove home quiet, like talking would make it real. And even now, years later, I can't give you a clean explanation. We weren't tired. We weren't imagining things. All three of us saw the same stuff: the red eyes, the radio, the truck. The only thing I can say, honestly, is that it felt like something out there noticed us, and it did not appreciate being tested. To this day, I won't drive that road at night. Not because I'm trying to be dramatic, because I don't want to find out what happens if it decides to follow us all the way home. So, I've sat on this story for a long time, and I still don't tell it lightly. This happened about 7 years back, maybe closer to 8. My mom, my stepdad, and I were going through a rough stretch, and for most of the summer, spilling into early fall, we ended up living at this state campground. Not for a weekend, not for a vacation, like living there. Our campsite was toward the front, where it was a little more open, but pretty much everywhere else was woods. Thick trees, shadows that felt deeper at night, that kind of place. I had my own small tent, just big enough for me, my sleeping bag, and this little portable TV I'd watch to calm down at night. And leading up to the thing that happened, there was this sound. Almost every night, we'd hear something out in the trees, behind us, sometimes off to the right, sometimes across the little campground road. It wasn't constant, but it was enough that we started expecting it. It would scream or yell, loud enough to make the hair on your arms stand up. And before you say owl, I thought that too. I went down a rabbit hole. I listened to every owl call I could find. Barred owl, great horned, screech owl, everything. This wasn't that. It also wasn't the classic whoop people always talk about. It sounded bigger, rougher, like something trying to push sound out of a chest that didn't belong to a deer or a bird. By the time this happened, camping season was winding down. Most people were gone. There were still a handful of campers way off on the far end, and a couple spots tucked deeper in the back, but near us, it felt almost abandoned, quiet in that unsettling way. The night before my encounter, my stepdad, his name's Glenn, sat straight up in his sleeping bag and swore he heard someone messing with the cooler outside their tent. Like the lid opening, a little rummaging, that soft clink of ice shifting. He even whispered my name through the tent wall like, "Are you awake?" But I was out. Next morning we checked. Nothing missing. Not the snacks, not the drinks, not even the meat we kept buried at the bottom. And that stuck with us, because if it was a person snooping, why wouldn't they take something? Then came the next night. I remember I was sitting in my tent watching some movie I didn't even care about, just needed the noise. The glow of the screen made the tent feel less dark, like it put a little bubble around me. And then I heard footsteps. Not loud stomping, more like careful steps. Close enough that my stomach instantly tightened. I paused the movie and muted the TV so fast I almost knocked it over. I listened, and I heard the cooler. The lid opened. Ice shifted. Something moved around inside for a few seconds, like a hand feeling through it. Not frantic, just curious. Then the lid closed. My heart was pounding so hard I swear it was shaking my ribs. And then the steps moved away from the cooler and came straight toward my tent. I remember thinking, please just keep walking. Please just keep walking. But it didn't. It stopped right beside me. And then, this is the part that still makes my throat go tight. It pressed a hand against the side of my tent. Not a little tap, not a poke. It pushed in, like it wanted to feel what was inside. The fabric bowed inward, and the shape of the hand became clear. Palm, thick fingers, the whole outline. And because the TV had been on, there was still enough light inside the tent that I could see the color through the fabric. Dark, like a deep brown. The hand stayed there for maybe 5 seconds, just long enough to feel like a full minute. Then it slowly pulled away, and the footsteps backed off, and walked away into the dark, like it had never been there at all. No running, no laughing, no whispering, just gone. I didn't sleep, not really. I lay there listening for another hour, maybe more, expecting it to come back. But it didn't. The next day, I didn't even think to look for footprints. People always ask that. Did you check the ground? And I wish I had. I really do. But I was in this weird fog for days afterward, like my brain didn't know where to file what happened. I've gone over the possibilities 100 times. It didn't feel like a person messing around. There wasn't that human energy. No joking, no lingering to scare me again. And the town nearby was tiny, the kind of place where you'd notice if there were people wandering around looking for food. It just didn't add up. What it did feel like was something young, curious, testing boundaries. Like it didn't actually want to take anything, it just wanted to see. And there's one more thing, and I know this part sounds strange, but it stuck with me too. One night, separate from the hand thing, I woke up around 1 or 2 in the morning, and for a few seconds I swear I heard drums. Not modern drums, more like that steady, distant thump-thump you'd imagine in an old battlefield movie. It faded quickly, and maybe it was my half-asleep brain playing tricks, but here's the weird part. There was a historic battle fought in that region way back in the 1700s. Not right on top of the campground, but close enough that people in town talk about it. So sometimes I wonder if that area just holds things, sounds, stories, whatever you want to call it. I still haven't stayed at that campground again, but I think about it more than I'd like to admit. And part of me, this is the honest truth, part of me wants to go back, just once, and sit in that same patch of woods and listen. Not because I want to be scared again, because I want to know what it was that reached out and touched the wall of my tent. So, I work the front desk at a hotel down here in Mexico, and I've got one of those stories that still makes me pause every time I walk past a certain door. It was earlier this month when we had 3 guests staying in room 1214 for just 2 nights. It started like a totally normal day, until it didn't. A couple showed up mid-afternoon, no reservation. They were both in their 30s. Let's call them Marisol and Dante, and they asked if we had anything available. We did, so I checked them in like usual. Dante casually mentioned, "One more person is coming later tonight." They were Latino, visiting from the US, and at first glance they looked like any other travelers. Except Marisol. She barely spoke. Not in a shy way. More like she was trying not to move her face. Her expression was tight, uncomfortable, like she was either in pain or seriously irritated. Dante kept leaning toward her, murmuring things like, "Are you lightheaded?" and "Do you want to lie down?" And she'd just give this tiny shake of her head. While they waited in the lobby for the room to be finished, Dante said something that made everything click a little. "Please, I don't want her walking too much. We're coming from a medical office and she isn't feeling well." I remember nodding like, "Okay, that explains the look on her face." Still weird, but at least it made some sense. The next day was my day off, so I wasn't around for whatever happened in between. But when I came back for the morning shift 2 days later, around 6:30 a.m., I found out the energy had shifted. About 10 minutes into my shift, Dante comes in from outside, looking rushed, and asks to settle their restaurant charges because they were leaving soon. They had a flight that morning. Then, around 8 a.m., he comes back down and drops the key cards on the counter, like he's trying not to waste a second. He steps outside to call a rideshare. And right behind him, this is the part I can still picture too clearly, comes the third guest, Elias, guiding Marisol through the lobby. Marisol had a cloth tied over her eyes. Not sunglasses, not a sleep mask, a cloth, like a blindfold. Elias had one hand lightly on her arm, steering her carefully, whispering instructions like, "Okay, step here. Careful, there's a curb. Slow." I just stood there watching, pretending to look busy, because what do you even do with that? The strange part was, besides the blindfold, she looked fine. Pale maybe, but not stumbling, not weak. Just blindfolded. Like it was intentional. They left, and for a moment everything went quiet again, until housekeeping found me maybe 20 minutes later. One of them came up and said, super seriously, "Can you come see the room? Something is wrong." So I went. As soon as I got to room 1214, I saw blankets piled outside the door, like they'd been dragged out and dropped. I took a couple steps closer and then, no exaggeration, the smell hit me. Blood. That sharp, metallic smell you don't confuse with anything else. Inside, there was a towel on the bed soaked through, and it had stained the mattress underneath. Clothes were scattered across the floor like someone grabbed what they could and ran, and later housekeeping told me those clothes had blood on them too. But the thing that made my skin prickle wasn't even the blood. It was the mirror. There was a mirror mounted on the wall, and someone had covered it with a washcloth, like they didn't want it looking at anything, like they didn't want to see themselves, or like they didn't want something else to see them. I stepped back out, told housekeeping to stay put, and went straight to my manager. We took the room out of service immediately and did a deep cleaning. They said they'd found crosses around the room, not drawn in marker, not scratched in, not taped up. Crosses made from oil. On the walls, on the table, on the headboard, on the TV frame, even on parts of the mirror. Like someone had dipped a finger in oil and quietly marked the room with them. We cleaned everything we could, but some of those oily cross marks are still faintly visible if you know where to look. And here's the part that's honestly the creepiest to me. Housekeeping swears that after the room was closed, they went back in later just to refresh it and found things out of place. Decor shifted, items not where they'd left them. Nothing major, just enough to make you stop and think, wait, who's been in here? Except no one should have been. So, yeah, people at work started speculating immediately. Some think it was a ritual. Some think it was some kind of protection thing. Others think it was just panic after a medical emergency and people doing whatever they believed would help. But that blindfold, the blood, the covered mirror, the oil crosses, I don't know. All I know is I've worked in hotels long enough to see weird guests, messy rooms, even medical situations. But that room felt different. And every time I pass it now, I catch myself glancing at the door like it might remember. So, this happened to me and a friend of mine about a year ago, and I swear, it's been looping in my head lately, like my brain is trying to make sense of it. For a little background, my friend Mara and I both had this feeling that her house wasn't exactly empty. Not like someone's hiding in the closet empty. More like there was something else there. The kind of presence you can't point to, but it makes your shoulders tense up the second you step inside. She'd moved in not too long after the previous owner's son died in a car accident. Mara didn't know how old he was, just that it had been a few years before her family moved in. And ever since she'd lived there were little things that kept happening. Random stuff would slide off counters like it had been nudged. She'd hear footsteps upstairs when she was home alone. Her family would mention weird, cold pockets in the hallway, like walking through an invisible draft that shouldn't exist. And one time, this is the part that always makes my stomach flip. She told me she woke up in the middle of the night feeling something cold press against her forearm, like a hand that had been outside in winter. Not rough, not squeezing, just there. She shot upright and nobody was in the room. I hated being in that house. I never said it like that to her because I didn't want to freak her out even more. But the place always felt like it was watching, like the rooms held their breath when you walked through them. Anyway, one night it was just me and Mara in her bedroom. No parents home, no siblings bothering us. Just that quiet, heavy stillness the house always had. We were trying to ignore it by doing what we always did, playing music and singing over it like we were on stage. The music was coming from my phone. Important detail, I wasn't even using the app. My phone was just there, screen lit sometimes when I checked messages, but I wasn't scrolling playlists or touching anything. We were in the middle of a song, like fully in it, not even close to ending. And then, the music changed. Not a gentle fade out, not the next track. It cut, mid-verse, like someone yanked the cord out and plugged in something else. Suddenly this song starts playing, something totally different from what we'd been listening to, like a hard left turn. And I remember Mara going, "Wait, what is this?" and I'm already reaching for my phone because my first thought is I accidentally hit something. But here's the thing. It wasn't just any random song. It was Dollhouse. And if it had been anything else, I honestly might have laughed it off. Glitch, autoplay, weird shuffle, whatever. But the lyrics, what it's about, hit like a punch because it matched Mara's home life in this eerie, too perfect way. Mara had been dealing with some really personal stuff with her family, the kind of thing she barely talked about out loud. And at the time, I was pretty much the only person she'd told. Like, the only one. No one else at school knew. Her extended family didn't know the real details, and I definitely hadn't typed it anywhere or set it near her phone. It was just something she'd trusted me with. So when that song started playing in that room, out of nowhere, both of us just froze. We looked at each other, and it wasn't even dramatic at first. It was just that quiet, "Are you hearing this too?" kind of fear. The kind that doesn't need words because your face already says it. I remember the air in her room feeling colder after that. Or maybe that was just us. But it genuinely felt like something had leaned in close, like it wanted us to notice. We didn't run out of the house or anything. We just sat there for a while, unsettled, trying to act normal and failing. And after that night, we didn't really bring it up much. It came up once or twice over the year, usually as a quick, nervous, "Remember that time?" And then we'd drop it. But lately I've been thinking about it again, and I keep coming back to the same question. Was it just a glitch that happened to be horrifyingly perfect? Or was something in that house trying to say, "I know"? So, this all really kicked off the week my grandmother, Nana Claire, ended up in the ER, and it got scary fast. She pulled through, thank God, but after that, the house just didn't feel the same to me. I actually wrote down a rough timeline because it started to feel like one of those things where, if you don't keep track, you start wondering if you're imagining it. And I swear, I'm not the kind of person who usually jumps to "something weird is happening." But this was weird. September. Nana Claire got taken to the hospital for a health issue, and she left her place exactly the way it was, like she just stepped out for a minute. A couple days later, I went over to grab her some clean clothes and, honestly, just to use the bathroom in peace. Her bedroom is right across the hall from the bathroom, and while I'm in there, I hear her call my name, clear as day. "Eli?" And my stomach dropped immediately because Nana Claire wasn't even home. She was still in the hospital. I froze. I didn't answer. I just finished up as fast as I could, washed my hands, and when I stepped out, I glanced toward her bedroom without even meaning to, and I saw someone sitting on the edge of her bed. It looked like her. Not like a shadow or a shape either. Like her. I didn't stand there to investigate. I didn't say a word. I just walked out like my body knew before my brain could argue, and I got in my car and left. I went back to where I'd been staying and tried to tell myself it was stress, grief, exhaustion, anything that made more sense than what it felt like. But that was only the beginning, because for the rest of September, and then through October and November and into December, it kept happening. I'd hear Nana Claire call for me from another room, like she needed help or wanted something, and I'd go right to her and say, "Yeah, what do you need?" And she'd look at me all confused and swear she never called my name, not even once. At first I laughed it off, like, "Oh, okay, sure." But when it kept happening, it stopped being funny. It started feeling like the house was testing my attention, like it was learning my reflexes. And then, right near the end of the year, it escalated. December 28th. I was sleeping on the couch in the living room at Nana Claire's place because I'd been staying there more often, and sometime around 3 in the morning, I hear my Uncle Marcus yell for me. Not a casual shout, like he needed me right then. "Eli!" It came from the basement, where his workshop is. And I sat straight up because it was so specific and so real that my body reacted before my brain could catch up. But here's the thing. Uncle Marcus hadn't been there in days. He hadn't been in the house since the holiday dinner earlier that week. Still, I lay there listening, waiting for a second call, my heart thumping so loud it felt like the room was breathing with it. I didn't go down there. I couldn't. Something about it felt wrong. Like if I answered, I'd be stepping into something I didn't understand. December 30th. This one wasn't just me. Nana Claire called me into her room, looking genuinely unsettled, and asked, "Is Marcus here?" I told her no, he wasn't. Not tonight. And she said she had just heard him in my cousin Jaden's room, yelling like he was arguing through a headset, like he was on a game chat, getting loud over the mic. And Jaden, my cousin, heard it too. But Jaden's TV wasn't even on. His console was off. No audio, no party chat, no YouTube video playing in the background. Nothing. Just the sound of my uncle's voice, coming from a room where he wasn't. So at that point, it stopped feeling like a one-person experience. It wasn't just my stress, or my imagination, or half-asleep confusion. Other people were hearing it, because now, whenever I hear my name being called in that house, I don't just automatically get up and respond like I used to. I've started answering from wherever I am, just a quiet, careful, "Yeah?" Like I'm trying to keep distance between me and whatever is calling. Like, I want to acknowledge it without inviting it closer. And there is another thing that's happened in that house. Something even harder to explain. But I'm not going to pile it on right now. This is already a lot. I don't know what to make of it. All I know is this. It's confusing, and it feels personal, and it's starting to make me question what I'm hearing, until someone else hears it too. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So, I've told a few friends and some family about this, and I swear, everyone kind of smiles and nods like they're listening, but it always feels like they don't really believe me. And I get it. It sounds weird, but it happened, and it's stayed with me ever since. I'm going to keep the exact place vague, because it was a church summer camp, Methodist, I think, and honestly, it meant a lot to me. It was one of those places you carry in your heart, you know? So many goofy laughs, late-night talks, dumb camp games, just the best kind of memories. That's part of why this throws me off so much. It didn't fit the feeling of the place at all. This was back in the summer of 2008, when I was starting high school. Me and my younger brother Eli went every year for a week. It was way up north in this tiny little town. There was a lake there that always felt calm, like glass in the mornings. Just a few lake houses scattered around, and then the camp tucked into the trees. Quiet, peaceful. The kind of quiet that usually feels safe. We'd already been a couple summers before, back when I was in middle school, and nothing had ever been even remotely off. So when we got there that first day, it was totally normal. We met our cabin group, did the usual awkward introductions, picked bunks, tried to remember everybody's names, all of that. But then, that night happened. I remember waking up in the cabin for no obvious reason. Everything was still. Everyone else was asleep. All I could hear was the low whir of those cheap box fans they always had going, and the little ticking of a clock on the shelf. It was humid in there, that sticky kind of summer heat where the air feels thick. I must have drifted back off, because the next thing I remember, I woke up again. This time I was facing the wall, and I don't know why, but something in me was instantly alert, like my body knew I wasn't alone before my brain caught up. I turned over, and there it was. A silhouette, just the dark shape of a person standing near the end of my bunk. It looked like a man, and I could see what looked like a brimmed hat. Not like a baseball cap, more like an old-fashioned hat shape. The thing that messed with me the most is how solid it looked. It wasn't just dark. It was darker than the darkness around it, like it was cut out of the room itself. And it was tall, about as tall as the top bunk. I remember freezing so hard I felt like I couldn't even breathe right. Like if I moved too much, it would know. I stared for maybe a second, maybe two, and then I just panicked. I turned back toward the wall as fast as I could and pulled my shoulders in like I could make myself smaller. I didn't look again. I couldn't. I just laid there, wide awake, trying to convince myself I was imagining it, while my heart was basically trying to escape my chest. The rest of that week, I felt off, like I wasn't fully in my own skin. I got anxious for no reason, and I kept getting these chills even when it wasn't cold. There was this constant sense that something was wrong, and I couldn't name it. And it wasn't just at night. It was like I couldn't settle the whole time. That feeling followed me home too. Not for months or anything, more like several days, maybe a week, but it was intense. I'd be in my room at home and still feel uneasy, like my body hadn't stopped bracing for something. The thing is, nothing like that ever happened again. Eli and I kept going back every summer until I was a junior, when they stopped doing the teen week. And every other year was normal, fun, safe, exactly how it was supposed to be. But I still think about that night. I still don't know what I saw. I don't know if it was a nightmare I was half awake in, or sleep paralysis, or my eyes playing tricks in the dark, or something else entirely. I just know it felt real in a way I can't fully explain. Like my body recognized it as real before I even had time to process it. And I think that's why it bugs me so much when people brush it off. Because I'm not telling it to be dramatic. I'm telling it because it happened. And I honestly just want someone to take me seriously for once and say, okay, that's creepy, and I believe you. Welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. Still having trouble sleeping? Don't worry. I'm here to share paranormal stories from around the world and hopefully help you drift off a little easier tonight. Thanks for sending in your experiences. Drop a comment below and let us know how these stories made you feel, or share your own. And if you don't want to miss the newest videos, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. So, are you ready? Put on your headphones, switch on your nightlight, get comfy in bed, and let's begin. You know, people usually talk about the hungry ghost realm, Preta, all that, as if it's some spooky punishment that happens after you die. But the older I get, the more it feels less like mythology and more like a really familiar headspace people slip into while they're still alive. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, almost politely. It's that state where you keep wanting things, but nothing really satisfies you for long. Even when something genuinely good happens, something you would have sworn would make you feel settled, there's no real sense of arrival. The mind just pivots. It reaches for the next thing before the last one even has time to land. Because normally, wanting is supposed to have an ending. You eat, and the hunger stops. You finish a project, and there's a pause. Your system is meant to exhale for a moment before it leans forward again. But in this state, the exhale never comes. You get what you wanted, and instead of feeling full, there's this low-grade restlessness, like a motor that never switches off. It's as if the mind forgot how to stop tilting toward the future. And honestly, the old image of the hungry ghost, big belly, tiny throat, makes more sense to me now than it ever did as a kid. Because there's no shortage of input. News, music, apps, messages, options, invitations, goals. It's endless. but somehow, so little of it actually nourishes you. Life keeps tapping the surface without feeding anything deeper. I catch it in myself in small, almost embarrassing ways. I'll finish something I cared about, like putting the final line on a piece of writing, or having one of those conversations that feels real and human. And instead of letting myself feel it, I'm already scanning for the next hit of meaning. Next task, next plan, next idea. There's no gentle inner voice that says, "That was enough. You can rest now." It's just movement. Forward, forward, forward. And the weirdest part is, nothing is actually missing in those moments. I'm not in crisis. I'm not deprived. On paper, things are fine. But it still feels like something is missing. Like there's an emptiness that doesn't match reality. That mismatch is what gets me. There's this teaching that hungry ghosts look at clean water and see it as fire, or as something filthy. And to me, that isn't about monsters. It's about how perception warps when the mind is trapped in scarcity. Even good things don't feel safe to enjoy. A calm afternoon starts to feel like I'm wasting time. A good experience starts to feel like it's already slipping away. Gratitude gets replaced by comparison before I even notice it happening. It's like my mind keeps asking, "Okay, but what's next? What's better? What if this doesn't last?" And I don't think that comes from being greedy or selfish. Not really. It feels more like forgetting how to let experiences land in the body. The mind stays busy, but the nervous system never actually settles. Like I'm living 2 inches above my own life. The one thing that seems to interrupt it, at least for me, is generosity. Not some grand, heroic thing. More like giving someone my full attention, helping in a small way, sharing time, offering something without keeping score. No hidden trade. No quiet expectation that it'll come back around. When I do that, even briefly, something unclenches. The constant reaching stops for a second. Not in a fireworks way, not like a spiritual high, more like a plain human feeling of, "Oh, this is okay. Right now is okay." The hunger eases, just enough to notice what it feels like to be here. So when I think about the hungry ghost realm now, I don't picture flames or creepy figures. I picture something painfully ordinary. A human mind always leaning forward, rarely arriving. And the way out seems less about getting more, and more about finally letting something, anything, be enough. Okay, so I'm not totally sure of the exact time, but if I had to guess, it was somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning. You know that part of the night where it's still dark, but the world feels like it's holding its breath? Yeah, that. I'd been dreaming for what felt like forever, and I started drifting into that weird in-between stage, where you're technically still asleep, but your brain is already clocking the room. Like, you can feel the space around you even with your eyes closed. That happens to me sometimes, so normally I'd just roll over and forget it ever happened. But this time was different. Because I felt this gentle pressure on my shoulders, like hands resting there. At first, I honestly assumed it was my aunt, Mira, because she sometimes checks on me if she hears me moving around, and she'll do that comforting little shoulder touch like, "Hey, you okay?" So my half-asleep mind tried to file it under normal. Except, it didn't make sense. The way it felt, the hands weren't coming from the side of the bed like a real person would. It was like they were behind me, but also kind of above me, like someone leaning over from an impossible angle. And my bed's shoved into a corner, so there's not even space for someone to stand in the right place to touch me like that, unless they were literally on top of me. And I would have felt that. The mattress would have dipped. The sheets would have shifted. Something. But there was nothing, just the pressure of those hands. Then the pressure moved. Slowly, like, this is the only way I can explain it. Like fingers sliding down my shoulders toward my collarbone, and then creeping, closer, toward my neck. And the second I realized where it was heading, this cold, instinctive panic hit me. Not just fear, more like my body knew something my brain hadn't fully caught up to yet. Like, no, don't let it do that. So I shifted my shoulders, and for this tiny moment, the pressure disappeared, like whatever it was backed off. Then it came back, faster, more urgent. I shifted again, still lying on my back because I didn't want to roll over and feel exposed. It sounds ridiculous saying it out loud, but in that moment, turning felt like making myself vulnerable in a way I couldn't explain. So I did this weird thing where I moved my arms up, kind of casually, like I was just adjusting in my sleep, except I was really positioning my hands near my neck. Not in an obvious, I'm guarding myself way, more like I was trying to trick whatever it was into thinking it didn't matter. And it worked. The pressure left. But the dread didn't. That stayed. My eyes were still closed because I was terrified that if I opened them, I'd confirm something I couldn't unsee. And I was groggy too. Like I didn't have the energy to sit up or turn on a light, even though part of me was screaming to do exactly that. But I wasn't dreaming. I know I wasn't. Because my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was shaking my whole chest. I grew up pretty religious, more than I am now, honestly. Lately, I've been kind of distant from it. But in that moment, I started praying like it was muscle memory, like my body reached for the only thing it knew how to grab. And then I noticed my limbs were getting numb. My arms first, and then, this detail is so weird, but I remember it clearly. My right big toe started tingling like it was falling asleep. I kept wiggling it under the blanket, over and over, just to reassure myself I still could. Like I was checking, I'm here, I'm still in control, I can still move. And then, the sound started. That's when I felt fully, completely terrified. Like not spooky story scared, more like that raw animal fear where your skin feels too tight. I kept praying, just over and over in my head. And after a while, the numbness started fading, like my circulation was coming back, or like the panic was easing just enough for my body to stop locking up. Eventually, I felt safe enough, barely, to shift again and turn slightly, even though it meant exposing my back. I don't even remember exactly when the clicking stopped. I think it must have, because at some point I fell asleep. But even when I woke up later, the thing I couldn't shake wasn't the sound. It was the memory of those hands. That slow slide from shoulder to neck, like something was testing how far it could go. I looked it up in the morning, because of course I did, and a lot of people talked about sleep paralysis. But the thing is, I could move. I did move. That's what throws me. I've had moments before where I wake from a dream with sudden dread, like my brain just dumps fear into my body and I snap awake. But this time, I wasn't snapping awake. I was already awake. I was in it. And I felt something touch me like it had weight, like it had intention. I still don't know what it was, whether it was my brain misfiring, some half-dream state, stress manifesting physically, or something else entirely. All I know is, it felt like it almost crossed a line, and that's what scares me the most. So, let me take you back about 15, 16 years. Back when I was still a teenager in Vietnam, still in high school, still thinking the world was mostly simple. Our town was small, the kind of place where everybody knows who your grandparents were and which hill your family's graves sit on. And then one day, everything changed because the government announced a new highway project. A big, straight road. Progress, they called it. But that straight line on the map went right through the back of my oldest Uncle Kwang's house, and straight across the little family graveyard on the hill behind it. They offered compensation, of course. Money to relocate the graves to a new piece of land. On paper, that sounds practical. But if you've grown up with our traditions, you know it doesn't feel like moving. It feels like disturbing something sacred. Where I live now, here in Canada, when someone is buried, that's it. They rest there forever. Back home, it's different. When someone dies, they're buried first in a temporary grave, usually for a few years, so the body can return fully to the earth. Then the family reopens the grave, washes the bones carefully, and places them into a solid resting container before moving them to the family graveyard, the final place where everyone stays together. It's not just ritual, it's love, it's remembering, because the way we see it, a person doesn't really disappear when they die. They disappear when nobody speaks their name anymore, when nobody holds their memory. Like that idea in Coco, you know? That forgetting is the second death. So we don't forget. But here's where the tension comes in. There had already been some uncomfortable feelings between my mom, Lan, and my dad's side of the family. And when the compensation money came, it turned into an argument that wasn't really about money at all. My mom believed every single cent should go toward rebuilding the graveyard properly, because, in her words, that money is for the dead, not for the living. But my uncles wanted to keep some aside to build a memorial house, something that looked impressive, something people could point to. And I remember watching the adults talk in circles, their voices getting sharper, and thinking, please don't let this turn into something ugly, not over this. Then the relocation day came. Everyone gathered at Uncle Kwang's house, and we started digging in the late afternoon, only after the sun had dropped and the heat loosened its grip. The hill behind the house was darker than you'd expect, like the shadows up there were thicker. There were around half a dozen graves, and while the older generation stayed inside, drinking tea, playing cards, trying to act like this was normal, us younger ones got sent up the hill with one job. Every 30 minutes, we had to light fresh incense at the graves, 3 sticks each time. Just walking up there over and over, the grass wet under our shoes, the air heavy, the sound of insects buzzing like a warning. It already felt wrong. But then the strange thing started happening. Every incense stick we lit burned down smoothly, at every grave, except one, my grandfather's. At his grave, there was always one stick that just wouldn't burn. It would smoke a little, then go stubbornly dark, like something had pinched it out. The first time, we blamed the dampness. Night dew, cheap incense, anything. The second time, we laughed nervously. The third time, nobody laughed. We ran down the hill and told my uncles. They came up, annoyed at first, like we were being dramatic. My second uncle, Hui, took the incense from us, frowning, like he was going to prove we were just kids imagining things. He lit 5 sticks instead of 3. And I swear to you, 4 of them burned perfectly, and 1 refused. Just 1. Like it was making sure we understood. Everyone went quiet. The kind of quiet where even your breathing feels too loud. Because in our beliefs, that's not random. That's not weather. That's a warning. By the time we reached the part where we had to move the remains, it was almost 4 in the morning. A truck arrived, old, loud, its headlights cutting through the dark like knives. We had to move everything during a very specific, auspicious hour that a feng shui master had calculated. So we didn't have the luxury of stopping, even though the air felt wrong. We carried the containers one by one onto the truck. First, the eldest ancestors, then my grandfather, then my uncle's late wife. And here's a detail that always made my skin prickle. Uncle Kwong had been married twice. His first wife had died young. People whispered it was from a freak lightning strike while she was working outside during a sudden storm. Whether that story got exaggerated over the years, I don't know, but everyone believed it. When it was time for the final container, his second wife, two cousins showed up late, rushing, apologizing, acting like the clock didn't matter. They were assigned to carry her container to the truck. There was a straight, easy path from the back of the house to where the truck was parked. But for some reason, they didn't take it. They went the long way, looping behind the house, cutting around like they were avoiding something. I still see it like a photograph. I was standing on the back of the truck, bracing myself with one hand on the metal rail. The container came up toward me, and I reached out to steady it. And then, clack. Something dropped onto the truck bed. Not a tool, not gravel. A sound like dry pieces tapping wood. We shone our flashlights down, and there, scattered on the truck floor like someone had spilled them, were bones. My aunt's bones. The container had cracked at one bottom corner, and in that moment, every hair on my arms lifted, because all I could think was, that incense wasn't being dramatic. Grandpa was trying to stop us. Everything after that became chaos. We retraced the exact route my cousins had taken, scanning the ground with flashlights, calling out like we could somehow apologize loudly enough. We found more bones along the way, some in the grass, some near the back steps. We went back to the grave itself and searched beneath where the container had been sitting. Then someone ran to buy a new container. Faster, faster, because we still had to make the auspicious hour. We gathered every piece we could find and transferred the bones carefully, hands trembling, movements gentle like we were touching a sleeping baby. We made it, technically. We moved her remains into the new family graveyard on time. But it didn't feel finished. It felt incomplete. Not long after, my mom went to see a spirit medium. And look, I'm not here to tell you every medium is real, or that you should believe everything you hear. I'm cautious about that too. The medium told my mom something chilling. The crack in that container wasn't new. It hadn't happened during the move. Later, when we looked at the broken pieces left behind, you could actually see it. Green moss along the edges of the crack, like water had been leaking through it for a long time. Then the medium, speaking as if it was my aunt, said water had damaged part of her remains, and that one small bone from a finger had completely broken down. But that wasn't the worst part. Through the medium's gestures, my aunt pointed to her spine and insisted a section of backbone was still missing. My mom called Uncle Hui immediately. He didn't believe her. He and my mom were still in conflict, still holding on to pride like it was armor. But that same night, something happened that made it hard for anyone to dismiss. My aunt's son-in-law, let's call him Min, was preparing to leave early the next morning for a work trip. Around 3 a.m, he had the same dream 3 times in a row. In the dream, my aunt appeared and said, "You cannot go tomorrow. I'm dirty. I'm missing bones. Come back and help me find them." And that word, dirty, hit hard because it was true in the most practical way. We hadn't had time to do the full traditional washing of the bones with the special herb-boiled water. Everything had been rushed to meet that feng shui hour. Min woke up shaken and called Uncle Hui around 3:30 a.m., telling him everything. So the next day, we gathered again at Uncle Kwong's house. And this is the part I always pause on, because even now, I don't know how to explain it without sounding like I'm trying to convince you. My aunt's son said he'd also dreamed something strange, He saw a woman in a white dress sitting under a jackfruit tree behind the house, right along the route my cousins had taken. We all walked out there together, quiet, uneasy, like a group of people entering a room they didn't want to enter. We reached the jackfruit tree, and directly beneath it was a section of backbone. A human spine is unmistakable. The shape, the ridges, the weight of it, even when it's just bone. It was exactly what the medium had described. After that, nobody argued anymore. My uncles were terrified in the most honest way, like the fear stripped their egos clean. They used all the compensation money to rebuild the graveyard properly. No memorial house, no keeping anything aside, not $1. And me? I don't walk around thinking every coincidence is a sign. I don't live my life afraid. But I also can't tell myself that night was nothing. Because too many pieces fit together. Too many warnings, too many dreams, too exact. And it left me with this quiet belief I carry now, even across oceans. The people we love, they're still somewhere. Maybe not in the way we can measure, but in a way that shows up when we forget to be careful, when we rush, when we let pride get in the way of respect, watching over us, helping us, waiting for us to remember them so they don't truly disappear. Okay, so I have to tell you about last night, because it was genuinely one of the strangest experiences I've ever had, and I can't stop replaying it in my head. Lately, I've been deep into those Reddit stories, real-life creepy encounters, paranormal stuff, all of it. And I know, reading those before bed is basically asking for trouble. But I love that kind of thing. I'm one of those people who actually believes there's something out there. Even so, I'm not invincible. I still get scared. So it's around 10:10 p.m. when I finally plug my phone in, turn off the lights, and climb into bed. And immediately my brain starts doing that thing it always does, jumping between random thoughts and the scary stories I'd read. Normally, I can knock out pretty fast, but that night, no chance. I just had this heavy, uneasy feeling, like my room wasn't as familiar as it usually is. I pulled the blanket up over myself like I was trying to hide from my own imagination, but it got warm fast, like uncomfortably warm, and the air felt thick. I remember leaving this little gap near my face just so I could breathe easier, and that's when it started. At first, I thought maybe I was just restless, but no, my body started moving in a way that didn't feel like me choosing it, like my hands were doing these little motions on their own, and then it turned into full-on dance movements, while I'm literally lying in bed. And listen, this is the part that makes it extra weird. I'm a big fan of this dance group I've been obsessed with lately, and I know their choreography really well. My hands and arms started doing pieces of that choreo, like my body was practicing without permission. I didn't even want to move. I was tired. I just wanted to sleep. But it felt like something inside me had the steering wheel, and I was just watching. It lasted maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and when it stopped, I just froze. I pulled the blanket back up and tried to breathe normally, tried to calm myself down, told myself, okay, that was just a weird nervous thing. You're fine. But then, about half an hour later, it happened again. Only this time it wasn't just that one choreography. It was like my body was flipping through dance trends at random. Bits of moves I recognized from different songs, different challenges, like, why are you doing this right now? Kind of stuff. My fingers were twitching, my arms were moving in patterns, and I swear I was fighting to stay still. I felt exhausted, like my body was spending energy I didn't give it permission to spend. And then, on top of all that, I started hearing this sound, a soft whistle. Not loud, not dramatic, just faint, like it was somewhere in the room but not close enough to pinpoint. It happened for a few seconds, stopped, started again, like someone testing it. and then it just cut out completely. I remember staring into the dark after that, holding my breath, waiting for it to happen again. I stayed awake for almost 2 hours, just lying there with that tight feeling in my chest, trying to convince myself I was okay. Eventually, somehow, I fell asleep. But the whole night had this wrong feeling to it, like the air itself was off. And the creepiest part is, it didn't feel like I was imagining it. It didn't feel like I was half dreaming or hallucinating or doing that sleepy jerk thing people do. It felt real, like something was actually there, nudging me, pushing buttons, seeing what would happen. I don't know. Maybe there's a normal explanation. Maybe it was stress, or being overtired, or my brain reacting to all the scary stuff I'd been reading. But in the moment, it didn't feel like my mind messing with me. Hey, so I want to tell you something that's been sitting heavy on my chest for years now. I live in a senior Section 8 apartment complex, something like 160 units, give or take. It's one of those places where you get to know the rhythm of the building. The same elevators, the same voices in the hall, the same doors opening and closing. And like any senior community, people pass away sometimes. That's just part of life here. I'm a disabled guy in my mid-50s, Catholic, been here almost a decade. I'm not someone who goes looking for spooky explanations. If anything, I'm the type who wants things to make sense. I want a logical reason first. But this started about 4 years back, and it hasn't completely let go of me since. There used to be a neighbor down the hall. Her name was Marlene. Every single day, I'd see her sitting outside her apartment with her door shut, blasting music so loud you could hear it echoing down the hallway. One day I finally asked her, "Marlene, what's going on? Why the concert every day?" And she looks at me like it's the most normal thing in the world and says, "There's something in my apartment, a ghost, and it hates loud music, so I keep it on all the time." I laughed. I really did. I remember walking away thinking, poor woman, maybe she's just lonely. Maybe she's anxious. Then another neighbor, an older guy named Dennis who lived right next to her, told me he'd hear banging inside the wall between their apartments, like someone pounding from the inside, regularly. Within a year, both of them moved out. Just gone. And I swear to you, I thought that was the end of it. Until 3 days later. Because that's when I started hearing footsteps in my apartment. Not in the hallway, not upstairs. In my place, right there on the other side of the room, like someone walking from the kitchen area toward the bedroom. And I live alone. Always have. My door was locked. I'm on the top floor of a 6-story building, so it's not like someone's stomping around above me. At first I told myself it had to be plumbing, the building settling, maybe the heater, anything. But then little things started stacking up, like my touch lamp. Every once in a while I'd come out of the shower, towel on, door still closed, and that light would just click on by itself. No one else in there. No pets. Nothing. Sometimes the front door would slam shut when I knew I didn't leave a window open. And at night, this is the part that gets under my skin. I'd hear a noise in my bedroom, so close it felt like it was within arm's reach. I kept thinking, mouse. I'd lay there, trying to listen for scratching, for something explainable. Then came the dreams, or what I thought were dreams. I used to sleep with one pillow under my head and another sort of draped over the top of my face because I'm sensitive to light and sound. And on 3 different occasions, I woke up, half panicked with the feeling that something was pressing that pillow down on me, hard, like trying to smother me. I'd wrench myself around, heart hammering, and there'd be nothing. No one. Just me, gasping in the dark. Recently, I started having nightmares that felt even worse, like I'm being pulled, dragged by something I can't see. I'm fighting it, but my arms won't work. I can't scream. I can't breathe. And when I finally snap awake, I'm terrified. And the only thing I can do is start praying the Our Father over and over until my body settles down. And then there was this other thing that happened in bed that I can't shake. I called my brother. His name's Victor. And when he came over, he helped me strip the mattress down. We took the cover off, checked everything like we were hunting for evidence. No droppings, no nesting, no tears, no holes. Nothing living in there. It made no sense. And I need you to understand, I kept trying to talk myself out of it. I'd say, okay, maybe it's nerves. Maybe it's sleep paralysis. Maybe it's stress. I really tried. But there's one moment I can't explain away because I was fully awake. One night I'm in my bedroom and I see this thing, not like a person, not like a shadow. It was like a yellow, translucent shape, almost like a glowing square, kind of shimmering, sparkling in a weird way. And it moved, not walking like a human, but gliding, steady, right into my bedroom space. It was about chest high off the floor. It came in like it belonged there, and I just snapped. I yelled, like a gut-level instinctive yell, "Get out!" A couple seconds later, it was gone. After that, I doubled down on what I know. I pray the rosary every day. I wear a brown scapular all the time. Not as some magic charm, more like grounding. Like holding onto a rope when the water's rough. I even had a priest come to bless the apartment and bless me with holy water. I went through the sacraments, confession, communion, even anointing of the sick. I was trying to cover every base, spiritually and practically. But here's the part that hurts to say. After that, he wouldn't come back. Not for confession at my place, not to bring communion. It felt like he was avoiding it. Like maybe he didn't want to deal with it, or maybe he thought it would feed into fear. I don't know. I just know I felt kind of left alone with it. And the strangest thing is, it's not constant. It's not every day. It's not even every month. It happens a few times a year, just enough to make me question myself, and just enough to make me dread the next time it shows up. So that's my story. That's what I've been carrying. And I'm telling you the truth when I say, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's causing it. I only know what I've heard, what I've felt, what I've seen, and how hard I've tried to explain it away before I ever called it something I couldn't name. So, last winter, I was packing up to spend the holidays at my parents' place, and I was actually excited in that quiet, adult way, because my sister Mara and I are both in our 30s now, and we don't get those easy, casual hangouts like we used to. Life just spreads people out. A few days before we were supposed to meet up, Mara calls me and says, "Okay, don't laugh, but something weird has been going on." And I'm already smiling because that's how she is. She'll say she's not superstitious, and then immediately tell you about something that absolutely sounds like a ghost story. She tells me it started after she bought this antique lamp. Not like a cute, normal thrift store lamp either. She found it at this little secondhand shop tucked between a laundromat and a bakery. One of those places that smells like old books and dust and someone's perfume from another decade. And she said the second she saw it, she just had to have it. Like it reached out and grabbed her attention. It was pricey for a lamp, but the shop owner told her it was from around the mid-century era, like 1950s-ish, and collector-worthy. The part that stuck with me was this. The cord was damaged. Not frayed, not worn, missing. Like someone had ripped a chunk of it clean off. Mara brought it home anyway. And then the weirdness started. The first story she told me, this one felt small, but it got under my skin. She said one night she'd finally gotten her apartment calm and clean. Her son, he was about 4 at the time, had gone down, and she'd done the whole routine. Toys picked up, lights dim, the "please let the night be easy" kind of quiet that parents know. She's on the phone with her best friend, standing in the hallway, and their cat, this lazy, clingy cat named Juniper, is lounging on the bed nearby. And suddenly Juniper bolts upright and stares hard at the doorway like something just walked past. Mara's like, "What is your problem?" Because Juniper usually scratches at the door if she wants out. But instead, the cat just watches. Mara opens the door, and right there on the floor is one of her kids' toys. One of those little plastic figures that absolutely does not roll or slide easily, like it had been placed there. She checks the bedroom. Her kid is asleep, out cold. No sleepwalking, no sneaky little footsteps. And she swears she didn't leave the toy there. Then she tells me about the music box. This is the one that made her voice go tight, like she hated even saying it out loud. She said she was home alone one afternoon, and the kid's music box, something that normally had to be wound up, just started playing. Soft and tinny, that creepy, sweet lullaby sound. She didn't even go to it right away. She just stood there, frozen, listening, trying to convince herself there had to be some explanation. And then she grabbed her phone and recorded it because she was so freaked out she needed proof that she wasn't imagining it. When she showed me the video later, I could hear it. She's trying to sound calm, but her voice has that shaky edge people get when they're holding back tears. And she said it didn't happen once. It happened multiple times. So then the holidays come, and we're both at my parents' house, back in our childhood orbit, the same creaky stairs, the same familiar smell of coffee and pine and laundry detergent. One night, after everyone's gone to bed, Mara and I do what we always used to do. We stay up too late. We're downstairs, lights low. The game is doing its thing. Whispers, shadows, that slow building panic. And Mara starts talking about the lamp again. She's half laughing, half serious, and she goes, "I know how it sounds, but I think it's like a kid. I think something's attached to it, like a child." And I'm about to make some sarcastic comment, because that's my default, honestly, when the neighbor's dog starts barking. Not normal barking, like violent, angry barking. The kind of barking that says, "Something is here." And it's around 1 a.m. on this dead quiet road, so it's immediately unsettling. And then I feel it. I don't even know how to describe it without sounding ridiculous, but it felt like a faint gust of air moved past me, like someone brushed by my shoulder, except there was no one there. And seconds later, from the corner of the room, a toy starts playing. This little musical toy my mom kept in a toy box for when the grandkids visited. It wasn't sitting on top. It wasn't balanced on the edge. It was buried under other stuff at the bottom of the chest. Nothing bumped it. Nobody touched it. It just started. That bright, cheerful little tune spilling into the room like it belonged there, like it was normal, like the game wasn't already making our nerves raw. I remember pausing and doing this quick scan of the basement, like my brain was desperately searching for a person to blame it on. Like maybe my dad was messing with us. Maybe my mom was upstairs with some remote-controlled prank device. Anything. But the room was empty. Mara's face crumples instantly. She starts crying, quiet at first, then full on. And she just says, "See? I told you. I told you." And here's the part I'm not proud of. I didn't wrap my arms around her. I didn't say, "That must feel terrifying." I didn't sit with her in it. I did the opposite. I did what skeptics do when they're scared. I acted like nothing happened. I went, "It's fine. We're just on edge because of the game." And I kept playing like if I didn't acknowledge it, it couldn't be real. Eventually, I convinced her to go to bed, and we turned everything off, and the house went quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet after that. The kind where you're listening. Looking back now, I wish I'd been gentler. I wish I'd treated her fear like something worthy of care instead of something to talk her out of. Because here's the truth. The rational part of me still wants to roll its eyes. The lamp, the kids' toys, the music boxes. It sounds like a story that knows how to be spooky. But that night, the dog, the cold little rush of air, that toy starting up from the bottom of the chest, that part wasn't secondhand. That part happened to me too. Mara got rid of the lamp not long after that. Donated it, tossed it, I'm not even sure. She just wanted it gone. And as far as I know, the strange stuff stopped after that. We barely talk about it now. Like we both put it in a mental box labeled "Nope" and shoved it onto a high shelf. But lately I've been thinking, maybe we should talk about it. Not because I suddenly believe in hauntings, but because I think my need to be the practical one sometimes blocks me from really meeting people where they are. And I don't know. I'm still a skeptic. I probably always will be. But I also can't fully shake the feeling that something heard us talking that night and decided to answer. So, my boyfriend and I have gotten into ghost hunting. We're still pretty new to it, but I've taken it seriously. Like, I read up on protections, I'm respectful, I leave little offerings when we go to cemeteries, and we always say goodbye. Always. I set boundaries out loud too, like, don't follow us home, don't mess with us, don't scare us, that kind of thing. And honestly, I don't feel like whatever this was meant harm. But I also know my old belief system can make me second-guess everything, so I've been sitting here wanting some kind of, I don't know, confirmation? Reassurance? Just something that says, yes, this can happen, or no, you're not losing it. Last weekend we went to a small cemetery outside town. We were there maybe 2-ish hours. It actually went really well, like wild EMF spikes. The kind where you look at each other like, okay, that's not nothing. We left feeling excited, not freaked out. After that, we drove back to my mom's place. We parked and we just sat in the car for a while, decompressing. Talking, listening to music, kind of laughing about the night. We shared a couple little swigs of whiskey, nothing crazy. I wasn't drunk. I wish I could tell myself I was. It would be so convenient. But I wasn't messed up, and neither was he. It's late, around 12:45, maybe closer to 1 a.m., and we finally decide to go inside. My mom's house is in this tiny young town, and there's this dead-end side street, more like an alley, that meets the main highway at a curve. There's a streetlight right where that alley opens to the road. No buses, no public transportation, no people wandering around, and we don't really have a homeless population here. It's quiet. We get out of the car. I step out from the driver's side and walk around the back to meet my boyfriend on the passenger side. And the second my feet hit the ground, I see him. A man. Right under the streetlight, near the mouth of that alley. And I swear to you, he wasn't just a guy in dark clothes. He looked like a solid black shape, like someone had cut the outline of a person out of night itself and placed it there. No face, no features, no eyes, nothing reflective, just black, dense, real. He looked like he had on a hooded cloak, but it didn't drag on the ground, more like it fell to somewhere around his calves. And he was standing so still, facing us, like he'd been waiting for us to notice him. As I'm walking, I start whispering, "Babe, look, look." But my voice barely comes out. It's like my throat forgot how to work. And this is the part that makes me feel crazy even saying it out loud. In my head, I kept thinking, hey, hey, like I was trying to get his attention without speaking. And it felt like something answered back, not with words, not like a voice, but like that same, hey, coming right back at me. Like a quiet back and forth in my mind for a few seconds. Not scary exactly, just heavy, ominous. Like being watched by something that's calm but powerful. Meanwhile, my boyfriend isn't reacting to what I'm seeing at all. Like, he's not even looking that direction. But then he tenses up and goes, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "Hear what?" He said he heard footsteps, clear as day, walking fast on the pavement. I heard nothing. Not one step. Not a crunch of gravel. Nothing. But my boyfriend is suddenly alert, like real-world alert, and he says, "Get the gun." That snapped me back into my body, you know? Like, oh, we might be in danger. Because from his perspective, there's someone close by in a dead-end alley at 1 a.m. So I reach into the glove box, grab his gun, and the moment I turn back around, the man is across the street. He's standing near a road sign, like he's waiting at a bus stop, which is ridiculous because there is no bus stop. And he's not even on the sidewalk. He's in the grass, like someone's literal front yard, staring at us. And it wasn't like he walked over there while I wasn't paying attention. It was instant. The shift was so fast my brain didn't know where to file it. Here's the thing that messes with me the most. I saw him in the alley first. I know I did. My boyfriend says he never saw anything in the alley at all, not even a shadow, not even movement. He only saw him across the street by the sign. But at the exact moment I'm seeing this cloaked black figure under the streetlight, my boyfriend is hearing footsteps coming from that direction. So it's like we were both getting the same encounter, but through different senses, different angles. I don't know how else to explain it. We go inside, and of course, when we look back out, he's gone. Just completely gone. I checked windows, like every single one, because I needed to see where he went. There was nowhere he could have disappeared to that quickly without us seeing him walk off. And the whole time, I'm not shaking or panicking. I'm just aware. Like my body understood something before my brain did. It was very pay attention, very this matters. If I had to guess height, he wasn't freakishly tall. Maybe around 5'10" or so. Built like an older man. Strong presence. The kind of presence that makes you feel small without doing anything at all. I keep wondering if it was connected to the cemetery, like some kind of guardian energy, or a spirit that followed just far enough to make itself known. Or maybe it wasn't from there at all. My mom's house used to belong to a man named Gerald, an old pharmacist who passed away years ago. And the neighbors talk about their father, an attorney named Thomas, who died not that long back. So there's history here. There are names. There are people who've lived and died around this area. And I'm not trying to turn this into a dramatic shadow man story or whatever. I'm honestly telling you because I don't have anyone to talk to about it who won't either laugh or immediately jump to demon. I just want someone to tell me what they think. Because two people saw the same thing, just not the same way. And I can't stop seeing that solid black figure under the streetlight, staring at us like he'd been there the whole time, waiting for the exact second we stepped out of the car. You know how Christmas used to be? Not just lights and cookies and the same old movies, but that little tradition people forget now, where you'd sit around and tell ghost stories like it was part of the season. Well, the other night my sister Lena and I were doing exactly that. Just talking, laughing, trying to one-up each other with creepy stories. And suddenly, I got hit with this memory so sharp it felt like someone tapped me on the shoulder. So, my grandparents were those kinds of people who collected strays, in the best way. They were generous and social, and somehow their house became a sort of unofficial home base for anyone in the neighborhood who didn't have much family. There were always aunts and uncles who weren't really related, cousins who didn't share a drop of blood with us, just people who'd found their way into my grandparents' orbit and stayed there. And as a kid, I loved it, because it meant you were constantly meeting characters. Some were a little rough around the edges, folks who'd made some mistakes or life had knocked them around, but most of them were good at the core, just complicated. And honestly, it made family gatherings feel like this colorful, unpredictable little world. That's how I met Marcy. I was maybe 7, 8, somewhere in there. Marcy had been around my grandparents forever. Some kind of connection through an old neighbor. The details are fuzzy now. She'd show up for holidays sometimes, especially the ones where everyone was meant to be together. Her parents had died young, and I remember hearing that she'd had a hard marriage at one point. The kind you don't talk about much in front of kids, but you feel the shadow of it anyway. What I remember clearly is this. Marcy was different. She'd been a police officer in Chicago back in the 70s, or maybe early 80s. Either way, it was a time when that wasn't exactly common, and she carried herself like someone who'd had to prove she'd been impelled. Not in a loud way, in a steady way, like her spine had been made of something stronger than bone. And the thing was, she didn't come to parties and sit quietly with the adults. Not Marcy. She played with us. Like really played. She'd get down on the floor with the kids, jump into whatever game was happening, and somehow she'd still carry this "don't mess with me" energy, even while she was laughing. I still remember her beating a bunch of us at horse in the driveway, like it wasn't even hard. This older woman in her boots, sinking shots while we stood there shocked, like we'd just seen a magician. But beneath the fun, she had this other side. Protector isn't even a strong enough word. It was like she was always scanning the room, always ready. She didn't tolerate bullying, didn't tolerate cruelty, didn't tolerate people pushing others around. One time, years later, my mom was hosting some kind of community event, and there was this guy in town who'd been running his mouth, saying he was going to cause trouble. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make everyone uneasy. And Marcy heard about it and basically said, "All right." She showed up early and stood near the entrance like she was on duty. Not aggressive, just present, like a living warning sign. My sister and I adored her. When my parents were busy, Marcy would sometimes drive out from the city and take us places. Nothing fancy. A diner, a little roadside park, a movie theater that smelled like popcorn and old carpet. But to us, it felt like being chosen, like being looked after by someone who took that job personally. And then, you know how it goes. You get older. You stop going to family events. You act like you're too cool for the people who loved you when you were small. Without even noticing, you drift. She went fast, and I still feel this sour little shame when I remember the night of her funeral. I was a teenage boy, and in my head the world was simple. Friends first, everything else later. I told my dad I wanted to skip it and go out instead. He didn't yell. He just looked at me and said, "No, you're coming." And thank God he did. Now here's where it turns. Fast forward more than a decade. I'm in law school, second year, and I'm running on caffeine, stress, and whatever scraps of sleep I can steal. One night, after this brutal study session, I finally pass out. And I have this dream. I'm a kid again, small, light. That weird feeling in dreams where your body is younger than your mind. I'm sitting on the living room floor at my parents' house, and everything looks exactly like it did back then. Same furniture, same lamp, even the faint, cozy glow you only get from Christmas lights in a dark room. My grandmother is there, and my great-aunt too. They're sitting like they're waiting for something, calm as can be. No fear, no tension, just stillness. Then the room shifts. like the camera in my head slowly turns, and on the other side of the room is Marcy. I hadn't thought about her in years. Not really. Not in any deep way. But there she was, clear as day. Solid. Real. She looked at me, stared at me, and said just one thing. I have to go now. That's it. No explanation, no smile, no drama. Just that, like a statement of fact. And I woke up instantly. I mean instantly, like I'd been yanked out of sleep. And I was drenched. I'm not exaggerating. My shirt, the sheets, sweat everywhere, like I'd run a mile. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. And I didn't fall back asleep. Not even close. I've turned it over in my head 1,000 times since then. I don't know what that was. I don't know if it meant anything, or if stress and memory and grief just combined into something my brain needed to show me. But I'll tell you this, the feeling I woke up with wasn't random. It was certainty. Like she'd been there for a reason. Like she'd been watching the way she always did. Quiet, ready, protective, and whatever it was, whatever she'd been holding back, keeping away, guarding me from, it was done. Her work was finished, and she had to go. So, this is one of those stories where, even when I'm telling it, I'm half laughing like, there's no way this is real. And the other half of me is getting chills just remembering it. It started when I was little, like little. My mom took me to a wedding in my hometown, and it was held at this old place everyone in the area whispered about. Not spooky vibes haunted, known haunted. I swear people said a bunch of folks had died there years back, but the number always changes depending on who's telling it, so I don't even want to pretend I know the truth. What I do know is, the air in that house felt heavy, like it had been holding its breath for 100 years. Anyway, at some point I wanted to change my dress, because I was a kid and I spilled something on it, obviously, so my mom brought me upstairs to one of the bedrooms to help me. We're standing there, just the two of us, and out of nowhere, something on the shelf next to us just launches off. Not slides, not tips. It flew like it was swatted. My mom immediately snapped at me, like, "You need to be more careful." And I'm sitting there wide-eyed, like, "Mom, I didn't even touch it." I remember being so upset because she thought I was lying. Years later, when she learned more about that house's reputation, she admitted she believes me now. And honestly, that was just the opening scene. Not long after that, in the house we lived in when I was growing up, I started hearing kids in my room. Like, children playing, laughing, the whole thing. It wasn't faint either. Sometimes it sounded like there were a handful of them right there on the other side of my walls. Like my room was attached to a playground I couldn't see. One night still sticks with me more than anything. I woke up and I could hear this old-timey music, like a record player spinning, and I heard kids giggling. And then, this is the part that makes my stomach flip. Even through the sleep fog, I felt this sudden shift, like they realized I was awake. The laughing stopped and I heard shh noises, like they were trying to be quiet because they'd been caught. When we moved out, my parents told me something they'd never mentioned before. Before I was born, they had a roommate. His name was Marcus, I think. And he woke up one night and saw 2 children at the foot of his bed, shaking it like they were trying to wake him up. So yeah, that was my childhood. Just casual ghost children. Fast forward, I'm 26 now, and I live in a totally different state. And I remember thinking when I moved, okay, new place, fresh energy, no creepy history. I'm grown. I'll be fine. And for a minute, I was fine. Then weird stuff started again. The house we moved into still had a landline set up from the previous owner. We hadn't even really used it, but it was connected. And it started calling itself. I know how insane that sounds, but I'd see it ringing. I'd pick it up, and it would just be static, like someone was on the line but not quite there. It happened enough that I stopped brushing it off as a glitch. And then there was the radio. Not every night, but often enough to feel targeted. At exactly 4:44 a.m., the radio would click on by itself, like it was timed, like somebody wanted me awake. On top of that, I'd hear what sounded like a grown man coughing downstairs, heavy footsteps, slow pacing up and down the stairs. And the worst part was, it always seemed to happen when I was home alone. I tried to rationalize it, old house noises, pipes, neighbors, but it had a rhythm to it, a presence. And for a while, I honestly wondered if it was my granddad. A few years later, we moved again, into the house I live in now. And this is where it got darker, more personal. Almost immediately, I started having sleep paralysis. Every night. The kind where you wake up, but your body doesn't belong to you yet. You can't move, you can't speak, and your brain is screaming while you're trapped. And every time, it felt like something was hunting me. I'd open my eyes, and there would be this tall figure at the end of the bed, just blacker than black. Like it wasn't a shadow, it was something wearing the shape of one. I could hear footsteps. I could hear scratching, like nails on the walls, and it would take everything in me to force myself awake, like I had to claw my way back into my own body. Even when I'm fully awake, I still get that feeling like something slips past the edge of my vision. You know when you see movement in your peripheral, and you whip your head around and there's nothing there? That. Over and over. And I'm not alone in noticing it. My animals have done it too, stopping dead, staring into the same corner I've felt weird about, like they're tracking something I can't see. My husband, his name's Ryan, actually lived in this house before I moved in. He told me that one day he had an Instant Pot sitting on a closet shelf, totally stable, and it just fell, like it got yanked forward. And the closet it fell from is right near the area where I swear I hear things and catch that peripheral movement. Then, a couple weeks ago, my daughter's toy fell off her shelf in her room. No one touched it. No bump. No shaking shelf. It just tipped like it was nudged. And a few times, I've heard voices. Not like, maybe it was the TV voices. Clear enough that I froze and held my breath. A tiny kid's voice saying, "Help me." And once, "Hey," like it was trying to get my attention. Then, because apparently I don't learn, I went to an antique store. I saw this gorgeous vintage mirror, all ornate, totally my style. I was obsessed with it the second I saw it. But for whatever reason, I didn't buy it that day. I went home and told myself I was being practical. That night, I dreamed about the mirror. Not like a normal dream where something just appears. I mean, it felt like it was calling me, like it wanted me to come get it. So the next day, I did. I went back and bought it. And ever since then, I've had these dreams where there's a woman trapped inside it. Like she's stuck behind glass, pounding without sound. And I've had this recurring nightmare that my house catches on fire. And then, the real-life stuff started lining up in this way that made my skin crawl. The mirror sits across from the TV in my sunroom. Since the mirror came home, the TV will turn on by itself sometimes. Just powers on, like someone hit the remote. And one time, it turned on and started playing Jeepers Creepers, randomly. Like, not even something we'd watched recently. Just popped on like the house picked a joke at my expense. Now here's the part that makes me feel sick as a mom. My daughter has started waking up scared. She'll sit up in bed and point at her closet and say, "Mommy, I'm scared." And her closet shares a wall with the closet where the Instant Pot fell. Also, she's sleeping in the same room where my sleep paralysis was the worst. Sometimes she wakes up and just talks, like full, sleepy little conversations. And I'll stand there in the doorway listening, trying to decide if she's dreaming, or talking to herself, or talking to someone I can't see. But I've started questioning things I never used to, like, am I sensitive to something? Is something attached to me? Is it just a freak coincidence that I end up in houses where weird things happen? Or am I just exhausted and scaring myself and slowly losing it? And I know how it sounds, trust me, I do. I'll be the first person to make a joke like, maybe I'm just crazy, because it feels safer than admitting how genuinely unsettled I am. But when you've lived through it, when you've heard the laughter, the shushing, the footsteps, the voices, the TV turning on by itself, and now you're watching your kid point into a closet like there's something in there, I don't know. What would you think if it was you? I don't even know how to say this without sounding a little out there. But for the last few years, I've felt like I've been visited by ghosts. Not the scary kind, the soft kind. The kind that used to curl up on your pillow and headbutt your hand until you finally paid attention. I've had cats my whole life. When I was little, I got my first cat, her name was Luna, back when I was in kindergarten. A couple years later, we brought home Pip, and those two became this inseparable duo. But Luna was mine, you know? She'd follow me from room to room like she had an assignment. She slept pressed against my side. If I was crying, she showed up. If I was sick, she posted up like a little guard. She died when I was 20. It happened fast, and it happened when my family was out of town, and it just wrecked me. I remember thinking, that's it? Like a whole life and all that love, and then suddenly she's just gone? Around that same time, totally unrelated, at least I think, it's when I started having night terrors. The kind where you wake up drenched in sweat and you're yelling before you even realize you're awake. I was living with roommates then, and I felt horrible because I'd scare the life out of them. And the dreams were always the same theme. Someone I loved dying. Over and over, for weeks at a time. But here's the part I can't explain. After a handful of those nightmares, Luna would show up in them. Not in a spooky way, not like some horror movie. She'd just appear, quiet, calm, sitting there like she owned the place. She'd look up at me and do that slow blink cats do, like, I trust you. You're safe. And in my dream, it was like she was speaking without words, telling me, it's okay. Breathe. I'm here. And every single time she showed up, the night terrors stopped afterward. Like the cycle broke. I'd wake up shaken, but also peaceful. Like something warm had settled over me and I could finally rest. So I tried to write it off. Grief does weird things. Brains do weird things. Fine. Then, a year or so later, I got into a car accident that I genuinely don't understand how I walked away from. I was on this back stretch of highway, barely any cars, cold enough that your lungs burn. My tire blew and I spun across lanes like a toy someone flicked. I clipped a truck, at least I think I did, then slammed into the median where the snow had piled up like a wall. Airbags exploded, glass everywhere. The front of my car looked mangled. I sat there for a second waiting to feel pain, because it felt impossible that I wasn't hurt. But I wasn't. Not really. Just whiplash so bad it made me nauseous. I remember putting my forehead on the steering wheel and trying to slow my breathing because my whole body was vibrating with adrenaline. And then, knock knock, a tap on my driver's side window. I looked up and there was this guy standing there, probably late 30s or early 40s, dressed like it was a mild day out. Hoodie unzipped, work boots, no gloves, like he hadn't noticed the temperature. His face was kind, though. calm, like he'd done this before, like he knew exactly how to keep his voice steady when someone else was falling apart. He talked to me through the cracked open window until help arrived. Just kept me grounded, asked me my name, asked me if I could move my fingers, told me to keep breathing. And when the state trooper's lights finally showed up in the distance, the guy sort of stepped back like his job was done, and he said, "Milo." And I swear to you, my stomach dropped, because that had been my childhood cat's name. Not Luna, another one from later, a sweet, goofy orange boy who used to sleep on my clean laundry like it was his calling. The guy told me he was driving some kind of rental truck for work, and I didn't see it anywhere. I asked where he lived, some small town nearby, and afterward, when I finally calmed down, I tried to find him. I searched public records. I called a few rental places. Nothing. No trace. Like he'd stepped out of thin air just long enough to keep me alive, and then disappeared. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe my brain latched onto a familiar name because I was in shock. Maybe it's that third man thing people talk about, someone showing up in disasters to guide you through it. Or maybe it was the same thing as my dreams. Me, terrified. And then this quiet, steady presence arriving like, "Okay, I'm here. You're not alone." I don't know. I don't know what to do with it, so I just carried it around. And then life moved on, like it does. I'm 27 now. I have a job, a grown-up routine, bills, the whole thing. And I have 2 cats, Saffron and Biscuit, my boys, my little family. I can't have kids, so yeah, this is it for me. They're my heart walking around on 4 paws. And this week, Biscuit died. It was sudden. One minute he was fine, and the next he wasn't. Some kind of heart condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the vet said, like the words could make it feel less brutal. He collapsed at home, and I held him, and there was nothing I could do. It happened so fast I didn't even get the chance to bargain with the universe. He just slipped away in my arms. I've been completely wrecked, like someone scooped my insides out. But the weirdest part is, he doesn't feel fully gone. I'll feel the bed dip the way it used to when he jumped up to settle near my knees. The treat jar, this heavy thing I never knock over, tipped off the counter the other night and landed right beside his bowl, the one I still can't bring myself to put away. I'll hear those tiny little floor creaks like someone's trotting down the hallway, even when Saffron is literally sitting on my lap. And then there's the purring. Saffron barely purrs. Biscuit purred like a little engine, loud and constant, like he was always reassuring me with it. And now, when the house gets too quiet, especially when I wake up, sometimes I hear it. Not in a "did the fridge just turn on" way, in a purr way, warm and rhythmic and unmistakably familiar. And I just lay there thinking, am I losing it? Is this grief? Is my brain trying to stitch the world back together by inventing him? Or is it him? I've never been a paranormal person. I've always wanted proof and logic and something I can point at. But I can't deny what it feels like. That when I'm scared, when I'm cracked open, something gentle keeps showing up anyway. So if you're listening to me and thinking, yeah, okay, I get it. I hear myself too. But still, if that man on the highway, Milo, from that little town I can't track down, if you're out there somewhere and you're a real person, thank you. I've wanted to say that for years. And if you weren't real, if you were something else entirely, then I guess thank you for that too. Because I don't know what this is, but it feels like love that refuses to leave. So, I've been to this place called Pine Hollow in Maryland a bunch of times. It's one of those abandoned spots that feels eerie, mostly because you expect it to. Peeling paint, busted windows, that kind of thing. And for years, honestly, nothing ever happened. It was just a creepy building with a creepy reputation. But last spring, late April I think, it was different. I was back there with my girlfriend Mara and our friend Jess, and we ended up in one of the rear buildings. There's this long hallway, and on both sides are these small rooms, like old holding cells or padded rooms, or something that used to be used for people who were not okay. The air felt stale, like it had been trapped in there for decades. I remember walking all the way down to the end of the hall, and I'm the kind of person who checks everything, partly curiosity, partly safety. So I'd been peeking into the rooms as I passed, making sure nobody was squatting inside. Every room I checked was empty. No sleeping bags, no trash piles, nothing. When I reached the end, I turned around to head back, and halfway down the hallway, from one of the doorways, something leaned out, not like a person stepping into view, more like a shape, a shadow that didn't match the lighting, just a quick, quiet peek, like it was shy or cautious. And the weirdest part is, it didn't feel angry. It didn't feel like a get out warning. It felt sad. I'm getting chills even saying that because that's the part that sticks to me. The feeling. Like whatever I saw carried this heavy, aching loneliness. And in the moment, I didn't think ghost or demon or any of that. I just had this flash of a thought. That's a kid. I can't explain why. I just knew that's what it felt like. And I don't care how tough anyone thinks they are. My body reacted before my brain did. I made this stupid noise, like a half yelp, half gasp. Mara and Jess both jumped and were like, "What? What did you see?" And I wouldn't even answer. I just rushed them down the hall and out into daylight like the building was on fire. Only once we were outside did I tell them. And of course, they wanted to go back in. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But I didn't want to look like I was totally losing it, so I reluctantly agreed. We walked back up to the entrance, and right as we were about to step inside, we heard footsteps coming from deeper in the building. And that was it. I was done. I remember saying something like, "Nope, absolutely not," and we left. Now, I've had weird little things happen at home before, little unexplained stuff, nothing that really stopped me cold. But after that hallway, it's like something followed the idea of me home. Or maybe it just woke me up to noticing things I'd brushed off before. The first thing was the voices. It's only happened a couple times, but it's so clear it messes with your head afterward. One afternoon, I walked in through the front door and I heard two adults, one male, one female, talking to each other. Not yelling, not whispering, just normal conversation, like you'd hear from another room when someone's visiting. And then the second I realized, wait, who is that? It was gone, like a radio turning off mid-sentence. I checked the entire house, rooms, closets, the back door, everything. Nothing. Then, on a totally different day, Mara had her own version. She was downstairs changing and she heard a man speaking upstairs. She assumed it was my stepdad. Later, when I got home, she asked casually where he'd gone, and I told her. He'd been at work the whole time. No one had come in. No one had left. She swore she never heard footsteps, never heard a door open. Just a voice. Upstairs. Like somebody was there. This one I'm torn on because I didn't see it. Only Mara did, and she'd just woken up. She told me she rolled over in bed one morning and, for a split second, there was a small figure in the doorway, child-sized, and then it was gone. I tried to be rational about it. I've had those half-awake moments too, where your brain is still dreaming while your eyes are open. So I told myself that's what it was. I wanted that to be what it was. But then the third experience happened, one we both heard, and it's the one that made me stop trying to explain everything away. It was late, really late. Mara and I were downstairs on the couch, watching TV like we always do. Above us is my stepdad's bedroom. He had work early, so we knew he was asleep. We started hearing movement upstairs. At first, I ignored it. Old house, settling, whatever. But it kept happening. So I paused the TV and we just listened. And it wasn't house noises. It sounded like something heavy shifting, like furniture scraping or being dragged a few inches. Then lighter footsteps, quick ones, moving from the hallway toward my brother's room. But my brother wasn't even home. And my stepdad, there's no way. He was dead asleep, and he's not exactly the type to get up at 2 a.m. and rearrange furniture. I didn't ask him about it. I didn't want to sound insane, but I know what I heard. We both did. And the reason I'm even talking about this now is because it feels like it's escalating. Like it's getting bolder, or maybe just louder. A couple weeks ago, I left for work around 3:30 in the morning. Mara was still asleep. About an hour after I left, she woke up to a whole chain of sounds, like it was putting on a performance. She told me she heard something walking down the stairs, then things on a shelf shifting, like someone touching objects and moving them around. Then noise from the basement, like a person rummaging through clothes, like someone changing or pulling fabric off hangers. And then, the bang. She said it was so loud and so sudden it made her sit straight up in bed. A violent hit on the wall right next to the bed, like someone sprinted through the doorway and slammed full force into the wall beside her. That's what shook me the most. Because the other stuff? Weird, unsettling, sure. But that bang felt aggressive. Not curious, not sad, not accidental. And what messes with us is we've noticed something. The more we talk about it, the more it happens. Like it wants attention. Like acknowledging it flips a switch. So we've been trying to ignore it. Keep the lights normal. Keep the TV on. Act like everything is fine. But in the back of my mind, I keep circling the same questions. What is it? Is it safe? Is it one thing? Or multiple? Because how do you hear adult voices, male and female, then maybe see a child-sized figure, then feel this heavy sadness in an abandoned hallway, and then get hit with something that feels downright hostile? I don't know. I just know I'm tired of guessing, and I hate that part of me is still stuck back in that hallway at Pine Hollow, watching something peek around a doorway like it's afraid to be seen, and feeling my throat tighten like I'm grieving for something I can't even name. So this happened to me about 15 years ago, and I still think about it more often than I'd like to admit. I was walking home late after a casual night out. Nothing wild, just a few drinks and laughs with friends at a little pub. Around midnight, we did what we always used to do. We stopped at our usual corner for one last chat, maybe 10 minutes or so, then hugged it out and split up in different directions. Where I lived back then was packed with apartment buildings, tight streets, lots of little balconies, and the whole neighborhood was basically hills stacked on hills. Normally, I'd take the main uphill that led straight to my place. But that night, I chose the parallel street instead, the one closer to where we'd been hanging out. It felt like a shortcut. Same climb, just a different lane up the hill. The moment I started heading uphill, everything went quiet. Not in a peaceful way, more like someone turned the volume down on the whole world. And then I heard it. This steady, old-fashioned ticking, like a grandfather clock. Not a modern little click-click, but a full, roomy tick, tock, tick, tock, like it had weight to it. And the weirdest part was that it didn't seem to come from one place. It was like the sound was everywhere at once, sort of wrapped around me. At first, I told myself something simple. Okay, someone's got their balcony door open, and they own the loudest clock on Earth. I even half smiled at the thought and kept walking. But after a few steps, I realized something didn't add up. The ticking stayed exactly the same volume. Not louder, not softer, not drifting behind me, not pulling ahead, just constant. Like the sound was keeping pace with my body. That's when I started actually looking. I glanced at the balconies closest to the street, expecting to spot an open door, a lit room, anything that would explain it. But the whole block looked shut down, curtains drawn, lights off, doors closed. It was a cold night, the kind where nobody leaves anything open for long, and there wasn't a person in sight. Still, I wasn't scared, not yet. More confused than anything. I slowed down a little, listening harder, trying to triangulate it the way you do when you hear a siren or music in the distance. I even paused once, just to see if it would fade when I stopped. Nope. Same exact ticking, same exact distance, like it was hovering right beside me. I walked slower, then a bit faster. I turned my head left and right. The sound didn't change. It didn't echo the way I'd expect between buildings either. It was just steady and close, like somebody was walking next to me with a clock tucked under their coat. A couple minutes passed like that, me climbing, listening, trying to make sense of it, until I reached the top of the hill. And the second my foot hit the flatter part at the top, the ticking stopped. Not gradually, not fading out, just gone, like someone flipped a switch. I remember standing there for a moment, staring down the hill I'd just climbed, waiting for it to start again. Waiting for anything, a car door, a window opening, some clue I'd missed. But the street stayed empty and still. And I've replayed it in my mind ever since. Because here's what I can't explain, even now. Why did the volume never change no matter where I was on the hill? How could it sound so close when every door and window looked shut on a cold night? And why did it stop exactly at the top, the moment I reached it, like that was some invisible boundary the sound couldn't cross? Nothing else happened after that. I got home safely. No shadowy figure, no dramatic ending. Just a quiet apartment, and the uncomfortable feeling that, for a few minutes on that hill, I was walking alongside something I couldn't see. Hey, okay, I'm just gonna say it the way it is, even though I know it sounds like one of those stories people roll their eyes at. I'm a mom, and my little boy is 3, and for a long time now, he's been talking to my brother. Except my brother passed away a few months before my son was even born. I know how that sounds. But here's the thing. My kid says things he shouldn't be able to know. And when he sees my brother, he calls him Uncle Jame, which isn't even my brother's name. It's just what he started saying on his own. His whole face changes. Like his eyes brighten up and he gets this excited, happy energy. Like someone just walked into the room that he loves. At first, I honestly let it be. I was like, okay, maybe it's a sweet imagination thing. Maybe it's a kid processing family stories, whatever. It felt harmless. Kind of comforting, even. But then it shifted. He started getting scared of his bedroom. Not like normal, I don't want to go to bed stuff. This was different. He was adamant, like full body no. And when I asked why, he kept pointing at the mirror and saying something like, "It comes out. It flies out and goes on the fan." Like the ceiling fan. I laughed the first time. I did. Because what else do you do when your toddler says something that wild? But he didn't laugh. He looked genuinely freaked out. So I took the mirror down. And the night I did, he finally slept in there again. Which made my stomach drop, because now I'm standing there holding a mirror like, why did that work? I started looking for answers, mostly because I didn't know what I was supposed to do with any of this. And yeah, I posted a few videos online, just little clips, because I kept thinking, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe other parents will tell me, my kid did that too. And instead, it kind of blew up. People were messaging me like, I believe you, and watch his eyes, and he's tracking something. And honestly, that part messed with my head, because I hadn't felt anything in the house. No weird vibes, nothing. Even though my dad did hospice at home and he passed here, so, the house has definitely held hard moments, but it never felt bad to me. Until last weekend. Last weekend, I decided to film a normal little vlog in the same bedroom my son avoids. Just me unboxing inventory. Super boring, literally talking about makeup and packaging and my shelves being a mess. I was rambling about this foundation I'd been trying, joking around. Nothing even remotely spooky. And later, when I went to edit the footage, I heard it. Clear as day, there were words in the audio that I did not say. It was a man's voice. And I swear on everything, it sounded like it said my name, like Mara, and then something right after that, like help me, or hurt me, or something in that zone. I kept replaying it, trying to make it turn into something innocent, trying to be like, no, it's just interference. It's just the mic rubbing against my shirt. But it wasn't. It wasn't that kind of sound. And the worst part is, I wasn't even using a cheap setup. It was one of those noise-canceling mic packs clipped directly into my phone. I've used it a ton. I've recorded in noisy places. I've filmed serious stuff, loud stuff, regular stuff, and I've never, ever had random voices show up in my audio. So that's the moment I got freaked out. Truly freaked out. But this wasn't me wanting to hear something. This was me going, please don't be what I think it is. And then replaying it anyway. And now I'm stuck in this place where I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm not trying to debate strangers. I'm not trying to be that person online. I just want to understand what's happening in my own house. And more than that, I want to understand what's happening with my kid. Because here's the heart of it. He looks at me and goes, Mom, do you see it? What is that? Mom, do you see that thing? And what am I supposed to say? I don't want to lie to him and be like, yep, I see it, when I don't. But I also don't want to shut him down and make him feel crazy, or like he can't talk to me, or like I'm dismissing him. So lately I've been trying to walk this weird tightrope where I'm like, what does it look like, buddy? And I let him explain. And then I'll say something like, I believe that you see something. Mommy just can't see it. And I'll be honest, it feels awkward coming out of my mouth. Communication isn't my strongest thing. My brain doesn't always pick the perfect words in the moment. Half the time I'm just trying not to look scared, because I don't want him to absorb my fear. Some people told me to teach him he can tell it to go away. So we've practiced that. You can say, go away if it's bothering you. And sometimes he does. But lately it's been happening more. More rooms, more moments, more little alarms in the day. Today it was under the kitchen table. He pointed and said, do you see it, Mom? It's like a bee. A bee. And I'm crouched on the floor staring at nothing under my table thinking, okay, what are we doing right now? What is my life? And I know I sound like I'm rambling. I am rambling. My kids are with their dad this weekend. The house is quiet. My brain won't turn off. And I'm sitting here going in circles trying to make sense of it. I'm not here for karma. I'm not here to argue with people about whether spirits are real. nobody's opinion changes the fact that I still have to parent through this. I guess what I'm asking is, if you were a kid who saw things, what would you have wanted your parent to do? What would have made you feel safe? Because I don't want to teach my son to be afraid of his own eyes, but I also don't want to accidentally encourage something that's scaring him. I just want to show up for him in the right way. And right now, I don't know what the right way is. So, my partner Evan and I have been reading these kinds of stories together late at night, just for fun, you know? And at some point, we both kind of paused and went, wait, we actually have one of these. We're not even posting it like we know what happened. It's more like, I'm genuinely curious if anyone's felt something similar, because it still messes with my head sometimes. This was summer of 2023, and it was me, Evan, and his sister Marisol. We were in that phase where paranormal stuff feels like a hobby. Ghost videos, creepy podcasts, the whole thing. And I'll be honest, we were usually a little tipsy when we went exploring, which, yeah. Looking back, it's embarrassing how unserious we were about it. Not respectful, just treating it like entertainment. We lived really close to this local cemetery, like maybe a 5-minute walk. And Marisol and I went a lot. Not once or twice, like dozens of times. We'd wander the paths, read headstones, talk about what we thought we felt. The cemetery had 2 distinct areas. One side felt normal enough. Lamps, open space, you could breathe. But the other side, everyone agreed it was different. It felt heavy, like the air got thicker, like your body noticed before your brain did. One night, we went a little later than usual. It was quiet. Too quiet. The way it gets when you can hear your own steps. And for some reason, I decided I wanted to walk through the darker side. I remember acting like it was no big deal, like I was proving something. But as soon as we crossed into that section, I felt this pull. That's the only word that fits. Not a sound, not a voice, just this weird, steady tug forward, like something was drawing me in, gently but insistently. And I kept looking over my shoulder, again and again, without even fully understanding why. It wasn't curiosity. It was like my instincts were trying to check behind me. Evan noticed immediately. He got that tone in his voice. Calm, but firm. Like, turn around, let's go back. He actually started guiding us back toward the brighter side. I tried to laugh it off, like, okay, we're leaving. But even as I said it, the feeling didn't stop. It stuck to me the whole walk out, like static under my skin. And here's this tiny detail that might matter, or might not, but I can't not mention it. Around the same time, Evan picked up something from a grave. Not like a whole bouquet, just a little loose ribbon with a flower charm, something that had fallen off an arrangement. He wasn't being malicious. It was more like, oh, this is sad. And he just pocketed it. At the time, we didn't think anything of it. After that, things didn't go horror movie instantly. It was gradual. So gradual that we didn't connect it right away. The first thing we noticed was this smell in the trailer we were living in. A perfume smell, but not a modern one. It was so specific, like an old-fashioned perfume you'd imagine in a vintage glass bottle. Powdery, sweet, almost too elegant. And it wasn't faint. It was overwhelming, like someone had sprayed it in the air on purpose. We'd walk into a room and it would just be there. No candles, no sprays, nothing spilled, nothing we owned. And it didn't behave like a normal scent either. It didn't drift in from outside. It didn't come from one spot. It just hung in the air like it belonged there. And then my energy started to feel wrong. I don't know how else to say it. I didn't feel sick. I wasn't anxious about anything specific. I just felt off-center, like I couldn't fully settle into my own body, like I was tired in a way sleep didn't fix. And what's creepy is that I didn't even need someone to validate it. I knew something had shifted. I remember going still, like my whole chest dropped. And then he added, "It looks like a little boy." He wasn't trying to scare me. He didn't say it like a threat. He said it almost matter-of-factly. Like, "Oh, that's what that is." And the worst part was how fast my brain went. Yeah, that tracks. Because I already felt wrong. His words just gave it a shape. We didn't scream. We didn't run around panicking. It was more like we both quietly accepted that we'd crossed some line, whether it was disrespect, or curiosity, or that pull I felt, or him taking that little keepsake. Something about it felt like we invited something in without meaning to. So we did what people do when they're scared but trying to stay grounded. We smudged the trailer, opened windows, went room by room, tried to reset the space. And then we went back to the cemetery and returned what Evan had taken, right where it belonged. We didn't make a big show of it. We just put it back, said something simple, like, "Sorry, this isn't ours." And I'm not saying everything snapped back to normal instantly. It didn't. But over the next couple weeks, it started easing. The perfume smell stopped showing up. My body stopped feeling like it was humming with someone else's presence. The heaviness faded. And now, honestly, most days I don't think about it. But sometimes I'll catch a random scent, something vaguely antique and sweet, and my stomach will flip, just for a second. And I still wonder, was there actually something attached to me? Was that perfume a sign of someone trying to announce themselves? Did that pull in the darker part of the cemetery mean something was trying to lead me somewhere? Or bring something back with me? I don't know. I just know it felt real enough that we changed our behavior after that. And it's one of those experiences where, even years later, you can't fully laugh it off.